It's starting. How is it going, boys and girls? And welcome back to another live stream. As you guys know, this one's going to be a little different from the other ones because we have quite a few guests that we are about to go over who's all here, and hopefully my laptop doesn't explode with this much stuff going on. But I think we're going to be able to pull it together. A couple things to talk about before we get this bad boy started. I'm not going to be talking very much in chat because I'll be more focused on this. So Gary's our moderator. He's our enforcer. He can put the ban hammer on anyone. I'm giving him full control there. Don't let it all go to your head, Gary. Number two is at the end of this, if we do have time, we'll be answering some questions from chat. Obviously, super chats, you guys get first priority. So if you guys want a real nice question that you want to answer to some of these amazing guests, super chat Old Dakota, and I'll make sure they answer it for you. Absolutely fantastic. Is it loud? Oh yeah, 100%. All right, let's get this bad boy started. Oh, yo, wait, that ain't the right thing. This is my first time trying this, so there's gonna be some problems. All right.
Oh, we're live.
And we're live with all of these amazing faces. There was 5 people now, so I kind of have to put my face just somewhere in between. Will's already frozen. We're off to a fantastic start in this.
Whoa, what?
All right, why don't we start?
Oh, we're good.
We'll start with Alex and then head on down to introduce everyone and what your channel's about.
Yeah, so I'm Alex, also known as Ravishing Reptiles. My channel is a little bit of everything. I do herping videos, top fives, expos, room tours, do a lot of informative stuff. And a lot of my things just come from the comment section. So whatever the people want to see, I usually try to go out there and make it.
All right, pass it on to you, Brad.
Yeah, thanks, Dakota. And
you're welcome,
it's pretty
Brad.
cool to be on a live chat with all you guys. What's that?
You're welcome.
Oh. Yeah, so Brad's Bioactive builds. I primarily put out video content of DIY step-by-step enclosure builds. I really try to add, unique features to all my projects. I really try to expand the mind of just having a simple box to put these animals in that we really, really cherish. I mean, they're really cool to have and just to be able to learn about them. And I find that we can learn so much more about them when we put them in the naturalistic enclosures. So my mission is to be able to show others on how they can build something for themselves and experience what I'm able to experience here in the reptile room.
Incredible. And then the next person I actually had no idea about. Everyone was just like, we need to bring this guy in. So I don't think we've had the pleasure up to like maybe a couple of Instagram messages. But next one, Riddler's Reptiles.
What's going on? I thought you were about to say Will there, but no. Yeah, so firstly, thank you for having me on. Appreciate you. Andrew, Riddler Reptiles. I've not got the right t-shirt on, but hey ho, here we are. UK-based reptile keeper, as you can hear by the voice. But yeah, so my channel it's a lot of builds recently, but I do try and keep things entertaining and exciting, different things that I like to do. It's sort of vlog style, but not. I just sort of record when things happen, how they're happening, keep it real, keep it down to earth, and yeah, really enjoying the journey so far. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell, really.
Awesome. And I just got to say, man, I love the enclosure right behind you. I already checked out Brad, so I can't comment again on him, but I really dig that enclosure behind you.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the fourth and final part of this build isn't actually out yet, so this is a little bit of a spoiler
for a sneak peek.
The final episode. So yeah, there you go.
All right, last and least. What do you got for us, Will?
What's up, guys? I'm Will. I go by Will Exotic online. I mainly do videos on really all things reptiles, but special focus in monitor lizards. I do a lot of herping, outside stuff, just anything animals in general. If you like animals, you're gonna like what's on the channel. So.
Right.
Did I cut out?
No,
I cut out?
We needed that little bit. We wanted that last thing to sink in, really.
Oh, okay, good. I appreciate that, man.
Is it already happening?
Is it him?
It's
Is he
actually
keep...
it's just been Will that's
Just
been
a little
fucking up
bit.
this whole time. So I don't know, man. Oh, he's back. All right, fantastic.
What in the world, man?
All right, boys and girls. So we got some tough questions going on. We're gonna start with the softballs, but I didn't want this to be another one of those reptile roundtables where it's just like, oh, what animal's your favorite to keep? What animal? I want to start. Let's like get into some controversy over here. That's kind of what I'm about, and everything like that. So we'll start with some softballs, and then we'll progressively get down to a little bit more of edgy topics, I guess. I think we're all going to be in agreement to the first one, but I don't know much about Alex. I know, Will, you have some really cool enclosures, but the first question today that we are going to be talking about, bioactive or not bioactive. We'll start with Alex.
I think if you can do bioactive with the species, I really don't see why you wouldn't do it. They're a bit harder if you're maybe just getting into the hobby, but the enrichment that it provides to your animals, the work that the cleanup crew does, being able to see like plants in the enclosure. Granted, I don't know how to keep them alive, but for those first like 2 weeks, it's a lot of fun seeing them. So I'm bioactive all the way, man. I'm gonna try to anything that's not like fully bioactive in my reptile room will be eventually. So definitely bioactive.
Fantastic. I'm not sure about you, Brad. Are you going to be a little bit against the bioactive stuff? I know it's a little off-brand for you.
Yeah, I was thinking that, man. Definitely not bioactive. It's probably the worst thing you can do for your reptiles. I mean, provide, plants and microfauna and self-cleaning crews and, to really just explode their environment. Definitely, we don't want to be doing that in the hobby. That's no way to go.
Well, I heard there's
but in
bacteria
all
in
seriousness,
bioactive, which is bacteria means bad, so we don't want any of that.
yeah, especially that beneficial bacteria. You got to stay clear of that. That's never any good. But no, seriously, I think bioactivity is important for your animal's well-being. I think it also depends on where and how you're getting that animal. If you're getting an import, you might not want to put them in a bioactive right out of the gate. You might want to put him in a nice little quarantine enclosure just to make sure that he's eating, pooping. You can kind of monitor it a little bit, kind of keep the area clean. But in the grand scheme of things, and there's so many helpful YouTube videos out there. I mean, I know the three and actually all four of you guys have a few of them out there just on bioactivity that are beneficial. But there's a lot of YouTubers out there that really promote it. Some Facebook groups that are helpful if you're just getting started and wanting to learn the ropes of it, so you can be successful. Because what I've seen is people try it and they're not successful at it, or they try it and a week or two later, all of a sudden there is some mold that kind of comes out, but it has to kind of go through its cycle for your cleanup crew and everything to kind of get in sync for that enclosure to be successful. So I really think the future of reptile keeping should be bioactive when you can, right? There are some species you might not want to do it with, but for the majority, I would say, yeah, bioactive all the way.
Hell yeah. All right, Riddler, you're up.
Well, to be fair, apparently I've seen it a lot where a lot of people say what we do isn't truly bioactive. It's almost like we've gone naturalistic with some isopods, and I get that. Because I think there is a lot more to it. But I think in a sense of what we know, where we say live plants, live cleanup crew, springtails, where you've got cleanup crew, I can't see the problem because it helps you that little bit more. It adds value to the enclosure as well. For example, my enclosure that I've set up recently with a royal python, and my dwarf geckos and millipedes. I've also obviously got springtails, isopods in there, so there's always something to see. And I do think those isopods, they do add something to it. It's something else of interest. But as far as we're aware, it can be beneficial for the animals as well. So anything that potentially benefits an animal and anything like that, I don't see where it can be a bad thing. So yeah, for me personally, definitely bioactive, but the word's thrown around quite a lot. But if that's what where we're going, then definitely bioactive.
All right, so a little bit of a bioactive Nazi. Good to note. All right, Will, you're up.
like Brad kind of said, when at all feasible, bioactive all the way. I'm not gonna list the reasons they listed because I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. But obviously, if you have to quarantine something, it's a little different. But aside from everything they said, just the fact that it makes the keeping experience so much better, dude. You cannot tell me that you want to like look at a snake or a lizard in a box with paper towels and whatnot. You cannot enjoy that nearly as much as something in a fully naturalistic bioactive setup. Just seeing how not only the cleanup crew like the microfauna and the springtails and isopods work in tandem with the environment, but also how the mold and the bacteria and how it all really forms this system, almost like they do in fish keeping. It's really cool to see it not only mold blooms and then the springtails and isopods boom because they have more food. It's so much more fun to keep animals in that way, and I absolutely love bioactive setups.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. I just posted the link to always was it not always evolving Trap Talk, their vlog of that zoo, and the first thought I was like, man, I wish I could do something like that. Then I actually came down here. I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? I kind of got a mini version of that going on. We got cool little jungles going on. It's pretty sick. It's an awesome little thing. But all right, obviously pro bioactive. I made a whole shop. I've changed like half of my philosophy throughout the last year ever since I started the little Project Jungle thing. So I all pro apparently. Again, a super softball. But I do let's start going up and kind of something that adds into this. Do you think bioactive is best at every level? Do you think it's the all best or do you think it's situational? Let's go opposite this time and start with Will.
Oh man. Okay, so I will say that if your only excuse for like not giving animals, I'm
Nope.
say
Maybe that
full
was a
bioactive 8 foot enclosure lights and all
Bro,
this stuff.
figure out your internet, bro.
What happened? Can y'all not hear me?
You just keep
no. You
freezing.
good? You good now? You good now?
You're
Let's hear
good
it.
now.
Let's hear it.
What in the world? So I'll just sum it up. I think it is situational to an extent. I think most people, if you have the means to provide that, you should definitely go and do so. If your excuse is I can't give my 200 ball pythons bioactive setups because it would cost too much money to give them that enrichment, then you should probably reevaluate the number of animals that you have. But I think at most levels, even through a beginner level, it's going to enhance the keeping experience. It's going to enhance the life of that animal in captivity as well. And I don't see why you wouldn't want that.
Awesome. We'll just go down the table after. So that would mean Riddler is next.
Yeah. So I think we should all be aiming for minimum of naturalistic. So it doesn't have to be fully bioactive, but to make sure that you're emulating your animal's environment as closely as possible, I think is vital. I know there's this whole argument because you see a lot of bearded dragons that are basically in dolls' houses, and people are like, it's cute. And then there's the argument is it functional? But I personally believe naturalistic should be the minimum. As long as your animal's getting what it needs, fine. Bioactive, again, I think it's nice and it's good to do, but I don't think anyone should be told their keeping isn't up to speed if they're not keeping bioactive. I think naturalistic, functional, where the animal is healthy is fine. And what we should be aiming for, bioactive, is just that next step that you can take that will obviously still help benefit. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there, Riddler, man. If you have the capability of doing bioactive, might as well add a few, fake plants, get some microfauna in there. But at the bare minimum, naturalistic is probably the best way to go. Just for your animal's sake. That way, and it's kind of like a catch-22, right? Like if you go pretty naturalistic, it would literally take $10 and some isopods to throw in, $5 and some springtails, and a couple of plants. So really, the margin of the expense really isn't that much more, and it'll just help the environment tenfold by actually making it bioactive. But yeah, definitely naturalistic. I see a lot of people putting all types of weird stuff in their enclosures, like these hammocks or just some things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but to me, it's not as appealing to the eye. You know, I just kind of feel like it's an animal sitting on a beach somewhere, and you should get them like a pina colada with a straw in it, you know, an umbrella straw or something.
Yeah,
I say go as naturalistic as possible, and then bring it up to the bioactivity if you can.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much share the same feelings as you guys. I don't think it has to be the minimum. I think again, as long as your setups are functional, the animals have everything that they need, that's fine. If you can go bioactive, do it. I agree with Will. I think if you're not doing bioactive just because you have too many animals and it's just too much of a hassle, or too expensive, not enough time to properly maintain it, then you should probably cut down your collection a bit and just focus on enriching the lives that your current animals have. The one thing I will say about bioactive, so I'm fine with people that are new to the hobby not doing bioactive, as long as they're doing everything else right. Only because with bioactive you can have some other problems that maybe in a more just normal, naturalistic, or even a bit sterile environment you won't have. Um, for example, plants, like, I didn't know this when I started doing bioactive. They increase the humidity by a ton. So you could run into some problems if the humidity gets too high in your bioactive enclosure. You maybe messed up the drainage layer. Now your soil is waterlogged, and you have like other bacteria's mold in there. So I think it's the ideal that most people should shoot for. I don't have an issue if new people want to just work their way to it, but again, overall, I think for most animals, bioactive is the way to go, and more people should be trying to do that.
So I pretty much have the same consensus as you and Will. Is that I think just for someone starting out, maybe not doing bioactive without some research, because there are some hidden things that can go wrong with it. Like you said, I personally, with one of my setups, I experienced a really funky mold problem and fungus that really bloomed a little bit out of control. And I know what to do with that because I've been doing this for a minute. But maybe someone just starting out and all of a sudden they see this black, hairy-like fungus growing out, that would kind of freak them out and turn them off from something like that.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
at the same
Yeah.
time, I hear people that I hear this a lot in the new cal community, that mostly the crested geckos, is we don't want to do bioactive or naturalistic because then we'd have to go egg hunting. We have too many geckos to look. Now I did a pretty kind of like a semi thing. They have a bioactive substrate, some low light plants, but it's not necessarily naturalistic. We'll move on upgrading them as we downsize and work with less geckos and kind of more up the quality versus the quantity. But I'm still digging through like 30, 40 bins. I mean, it just takes me a night. It's not that big of a deal. And I feel like if you're making all this money, you might as well be giving some of it back to the animals and having them be in nice enclosures. I don't know if that's a
Facts.
hot take, but that does seem to be, is like people, it almost seems like the only reason why people don't go bioactive when they are at these larger scales is simply for the ease for the keeper, not the kept itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the way with a lot of these things. It's easy for the person. It is also sometimes making excuses as well. Like one of the guys touched on earlier on, I think it was you, Will, having 200 ball pythons, royal pythons, whatever you want to call them. I can't keep bioactive because I've got so many animals. Well, you've answered your own question. Don't have so many animals. I can't go bioactive because I'd have to dig up the plants. At the end of the day, your animals are going to benefit if you've got overhead heat, UVB, LED, plants, a healthier lifestyle. You're probably going to have healthier babies and healthier eggs anyway. So it's going to be mutually beneficial. So you might as well take that leap. Take the extra 5-10 minutes to dig through an enclosure. You might have to rearrange it, but you're going to end up with better babies and better and happier animals anyway. So I think it's null and void, that excuse.
A little bit of a bonus too. This happened with my Urodactylodes. They're in a little bioactive enclosure. I didn't know that my female laid eggs for the longest time. I kept seeing her get full, but I could never find them. Turns out I have a potted plant. I didn't plant the thing directly. It's potted still. And so once I removed that, because it rooted itself into the substrate, I found 3 clutches of Uri eggs, one that literally hatched the next day.
Wow.
So it's in a bioactive enclosure,
There you
don't
go.
even have to necessarily move them. As long as your parameters are all set, they incubate themselves in the substrate. Again, depending on the species you're keeping, but a fun little tidbit nonetheless.
Yeah.
Dude, it was like someone, I think it was, who was it? Someone was breeding black-headed monitors, Varanus tristis, and they would forget to pick up the eggs, or they would not find the eggs. And there was baby blackheads that would like hatch out in the enclosure that you'd have to grab, right? Because the parents would eat them.
Yeah.
But like when you have an enclosure that's set up and tweaked perfectly,
Yeah.
your animals are going to be able to use that for nesting. So you should remove them so they don't get eaten. But if you don't,
Yeah.
Alrighty, boys. I think we've done enough softballs. They were really there to make sure there were no glitches or everything went wrong. But we're pretty smooth right now. Other than Will, we're pretty smooth.
I was about to say the same.
Will's literally frozen right now.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
should I switch to my computer? Should I switch to my computer?
I think what would help
you
would
think
be
that would
you
help?
figuring this out earlier.
Yeah, the like 10 minutes before when we. Although to be fair, we didn't have any problems. All right, so we'll put Will last. So we're gonna start getting to some hardballs now. First one I have on the list. Do you think racks are okay, or does it depend? Or are you completely against it? I guess we'll start with Alex, since Will is just a black screen with white dots right now.
Yeah, so I think I don't like racks. It's like everyone thinks of ball python breeders when you talk about racks, but honestly, rightfully so. Like, I don't know how many times like you just see these videos or posts on Instagram, and it's like this wall behind me that's 4 enclosures. It's what, 8 feet long, 6 feet high, 2 feet deep. They all have that, but instead of 6 enclosures, it'll literally be like 100 racks.
Yeah.
Or something like a crazy number like that, just cramming small animals into these tight spaces. They do all these mental gymnastics to try to justify it, like, oh yeah, the animals prefer it this way. When in reality, it's kind of what we alluded to earlier. You're putting the convenience for you ahead of the animals, right? You have a limited room in your space. If you can fit more animals in there, you can hypothetically make more babies and make more money. So it just comes down to, I think, for the most part, people putting the themselves above the animals. So I don't like them. And before Riddler says anything about my racks, because I know he's gonna I have green tree pythons. The babies get grown out in racks because it's the best for them. They stress out a lot less. They kind of really do enjoy being in like a tight three corners, really small.
That's who. The breeders.
Any fucking ball python breeder ever. They will tell you put the babies in a fucking rack or in a small tub.
You can justify it all you want, because you're a rat keeper.
I've had them in non-racks before, dude. They literally do better, and then they're in there for what, 6-9 months, and then they move into an enclosure. They're fine. And you were a real rack keeper. You had ball pythons in there.
I was, yeah.
So
but that's past tense, my friend. You're the only rat keeper in here now.
Oh, not true. But I'll
oh man,
I'll cope when it's my turn. So let's move. Everything kind of switched now that Will went back and in. So Riddler, you're up next.
Am I straight? Like, am I good
yeah,
now?
you're good now. You're good.
All right, good.
Yeah,
Good. All right. I'm gonna just hold it.
Oh, Riddler, you're up next. You're up.
He doesn't know the question, does he?
Brother, you're Riddler reptiles.
The question.
Oh, you don't know the question. Racks. I'm assuming you're anti-rack.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is the thing. Like, my reptile journey began with keeping royals in racks because I was early in it. I was told by people that I thought knew better than me. I trusted, you know what I mean? These were people that I trusted that had years of experience with reptiles, and they were telling me these things, and I believed them. Now, granted, I should have done my own research on top of that, but when you know that someone knows better than you is telling you something, it's very rare that you go, I don't believe you. But all I had to do was see it for myself, and it didn't take me long to start realizing that, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like, I had these big 3-4 foot long snakes in drawers, and it just looked horrible. And there was always something inside me that wondered whether it was the right thing to do. And then obviously started speaking to the right people about it, and very quickly changed my mind about keeping in racks. Now, we all know the constant arguments of how am I meant to have a breeding facility if all of them are in massive enclosures. You said it yourself. You at the end of the day, the problem that I find, especially with a lot of this is to do with royal python breeders, it's like, let's use desert ghost morph, for example. right? It became the hot new thing. Everyone wanted one. It was the most expensive, morph that there was as such. And so what they wanted to do, they wanted to get as many as they could, as quickly as they could, to flood the market with this morph. But at the end of the day, all you're going to do is very quickly drive the price down. If the big breeders have 2 clutches of Desert Ghosts a year, then you're obviously going to make, if we're looking at it monetarily, you're going to make more money because there's less of a demand, less of a supply for the demand. It's almost like they're flooding the market and shooting themselves in the foot, but even that's not an excuse. So it's one of those, it's very, very difficult to justify a rack system, if at all. So I am anti-rack. I know people base their livelihoods off of breeding snakes, but my point remains that if there were less clutches, you could charge more. So again, that just completely nullifies any argument. So yeah, I'm anti-rack, and I feel as though I'm in a position that I can very much say that, not that anyone else can't, but because I've lived it, I've seen it, I know how awful it is. I would never, ever, ever go back to something like that, and I would never suggest it to anyone. So yeah, very much anti-rack.
Hot take: if your livelihood depends on keeping animals in racks, you should probably find a better job or a different job.
That's
I always found the ball. I've never. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. I was in ball pythons for a year, worst year of my life, apparently. But I always found the ball python market to be somewhat of a pyramid scheme. Whereas you're seeing these
facts,
big
dude.
breeders. We got the Barcheks, Cabelica. I don't know any other ball python breeders.
Yeah.
But just the big guys that are doing this, they're going to make the money because whatever new gene pops out, they have 50, 100 females to pair it to, and then it just kind of trickles down until you're left at the bottom. It always seemed the way to me. It always felt like a really weird, like, rat race to the bottom to go into. But we still got a few people to ask. Will, you're up next. How do you feel about racks?
Well, I'm against racks. Obviously, share the opinion with these guys. I will say though, Alex does keep his snakes very well. Like, I'm not like, I've been to his place. He keeps his baby GT, dude. They're like flawless. You know what I mean? I obviously I don't understand like the whole GTP thing too much, but I will say his are kept flawlessly. But yeah, I'm not really too big on racks either. I just think for the most part they're not as enriching. I get the aspect of like wanting to keep baby animals in like a smaller, more sterile environment so you can monitor them. I just got a rainbow boa. It's not in a rack. It's in a bin though.
Yeah.
And I have it with a heat mat. I have it with sphagnum live.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
No way.
Bro, the connection in Mexico is just not helping us out at all right now.
Dude, I can still see you guys perfectly.
Okay, you're back. You're back.
I can see all you guys perfectly on my screen. Should I go to
our streams, our internet is all right. Yours is dead.
Mm-hmm.
what?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Well, while Will figures his shit out, we'll move on to Brad.
All right.
Yeah, so sure thing. I think there's kind of like 3 different categories when it comes down to racks or rack-like systems. When you have like mass snake breeders and they have a whole bunch of racks and that's how they're using it. For me to say it's good or bad, I can't, right? I don't have experience with that, so I don't really know. I know that there's people for it, people against it. I know Riddler, he once did it, and he is now like the rack reaper because he pretty much got rid of all of his racks and he swears by the enclosures that he had built. But for me to say that people should or shouldn't do it, I don't have that answer because, like I said, I don't have the experience with it. Now, what I do have the experience with is, like when I breed gargoyle geckos, I breed them in bioactive, full naturalistic setups. But when I get their eggs and when they hatch, I put them in bins and grow them up a little bit. And to me, that's like the closest that I've gotten to a rack. I like that sterile environment. And also, I mean, if you have, a whole bunch of clutches coming out, a whole bunch of babies, to have that many naturalistic bioactive enclosures, it'd be a little bit more difficult to do by the time that they left. And then it's also a little bit more of a clean after you sell one and then put one back in. So I just find it a little bit easier to keep them in bins. And then I think you also have your hobbyist, right? And that's what I consider myself mainly to be. And with that being said, I take pride in building enclosures and designing them and making them the best that they can for the animals. So they're really, I don't have a use for any racks in my personal life. So with that being said, am I pro rack or for racks, or against racks? I'm against them only because of my lifestyle and the way that I like to keep animals.
Yeah, I pretty much agree completely. Now, I do keep racks myself just for my new cow stuff, and I do think for as a temporary measure, they can be a useful tool for something that's a fresh hatched baby growing out till it's being able to be sold, and then it's obviously a temporary enclosure until it does go to that hobbyist, whatever, or as a grow out measure. Something I really am against is the adult animals. Ball pythons, I don't know much about ball pythons, so just looking at it from not having too much context in it, I still think it's bad. But when I think we get really rough into is some of these other species, colubrids that really like to move around. I've seen way too many arboreal snakes put into V70s, which if people don't know, they're about, I don't know, what do you guys think, 3 inches of height? Very, very tight, small drawer system for something that really enjoys climbing. I just watched that zoo video of a emerald tree boa 15 feet in the air. These are animals that enjoy climbing, and putting it in kind of that system just isn't it for me. But as a little temporary measure for something like breeders, it is a useful tool that I don't have too much against. Anyone argue with that?
I mean, I agree. I do agree with that. For temporary situations, especially, I think it can definitely have some application. But like you said, I think full term, if that's your plan to keep it in there full term, definitely not. But for smaller species growing up, I definitely don't see a problem with it. As long as you're doing your best to still keep those animals stimulated in every way you can. I still give him lighting, even in the bin. So
Cool. All right, man. Good talk.
yeah.
Now, I think Brad, one of you guys, I can't remember who, one of you guys kind of brought it up a little bit, and this is something I'm really interested in seeing what we all think about, because I think this is when divides might start happening. We might get a little bit more of little talking points going on for it. Actually, it was Riddler. I remember you seemed against this when we did bring up racks. So in this day and age of 2024, the hobby has evolved a lot, I believe. As we get more into bioactive, we get more into getting properly sized enclosures. I still remember when I started keeping almost a decade ago, 40-gallon was the minimum for a bearded, and now if you say anything about putting a bearded dragon in a 40-gallon, you're going to get flamed. The 4x2 is now the standard, and we're just kind of going up and up from there. This is America. I know that Europe is way ahead of us with our husbandry stuff. I see the little Snickers over there. So my question is going to be, for mass breeding, do you still think we need mass breeding in this day and age of the hobby? Let's start with Brad.
Um, no, I think there's a lot of people in the hobby right now, and I think if you have a whole bunch of people breeding one species and they're not mass breeding, those babies, um, they're going to get better care versus if you have one person breeding, 100 animals and having 500 offspring. Those 500 offspring aren't really going to have the best care, in my opinion. That somebody that was breeding maybe a 1.1 and they had a few eggs that came out, they would take a lot more, I guess, care of those animals. So I don't think it's needed, but it also might be case by case with the animal itself. I don't get into breeding too much, so my opinion is pretty low on the totem pole when it comes to that. I like I said, I'm more of a hobbyist, and when I purchase an animal, I seek out the breeders that aren't doing mass breeding, because I do know that they take very well care of their animals, whether it's their adults or whether it's their juveniles or whether it's their hatchlings.
Well, I wouldn't knock yourself too short saying you're low on the totem pole. I really want to see the what that ideology is for, because you're definitely more from the customer and buying base versus the seller's base. So I think that's a unique perspective that you can bring to the table. But yeah, let's hear Will. What do you got for us?
Hell no. I don't think mass breeding is necessary at all. I think it's actually really stupid. Now, the next question on your list is one that I'm super passionate
Yeah,
about, so I'm not
we
gonna
got
touch
some
on it.
good ones coming
Yeah,
up.
yeah, I love that one, and
God damn it, Will!
Fucking
Oh
God.
my
I was
God!
about to spit fire.
He gets me stoked, and then. Oh, he's
bro,
back.
I'm
He's
still
back.
Bro,
here.
stop giving us blue balls, bro.
Bro, I don't understand what's happening because it's all good on my screen. I
Yeah,
genuinely.
but that's because you're seeing yours. You're not going to freeze on your own, my friend. So for us,
All right.
you go
Anyway,
out the game.
Yeah, okay, he's back. He's back. Okay.
I'm good. I'm good. So yeah, I say hell no. I think it's dumb, and I think mass breeding leads to people wanting to just breed animals for a certain color, and then when that happens, all the animals that are not that color get kicked to the curb, and God knows what happens to those. I think
Yeah.
there's no need to breed any more ball pythons ever. There's more than enough to go around. No need to breed any more. There's a difference between hobbyists and people basically pumping them out like a factory. So I say no to mass breeding.
All right. Very strong opinion coming right out of
Very
the
strong.
gate. Okay, you love to see it. This is why I want to get in these questions. I want to get stuff heated, and it's just gonna get more and more as we go down. All right, Riddler, what do you got for us?
Well, again, I agree with Will. There's absolutely no need for mass breeding. There's enough people in the hobby that we don't have to have the big guys just churning out hundreds, if not thousands, of the same animal every single year. It's completely unnecessary. You know, it's just. And again, so I'm going to touch on what Will said. The problem is, and let's look at royal or ball pythons again. It's a very American heavy stream, this one. So ball pythons. How many combinations are there that still put out normal royal pythons? Pretty much all of them, if not the majority of them. Unless you're obviously doing, dominant to dominant, and then that could be different. But where do these normals go? Do they? We know that there should be more, but there aren't, because the only ones on Morph Market, for example, are 20, 30 quid a piece. So where are the rest of them? And because they're not the right colour or pattern or anything like that, they're in trouble, and they probably, very likely, get euthanized. And it just seems to, it's very harsh, because these animals have been bred and all of a sudden taken out for no apparent reason. There's always going to be someone that wants to buy a reptile. That's the thing. This hobby hopefully isn't going anywhere. So why are we mass breeding? Why are we mass producing? It's just not necessary at all. So yeah, I agree. I don't think it's necessary. Breeding in general, fine, because obviously breeding in the reptile hobby has helped, animals from going nearly extinct. It helps, but mass breeding completely unnecessary, and breeding of giant species in excess as well. Just completely.
Let's slow your roll. We're not there yet.
Oh, is that a thing? All right.
That was the next one.
My bad.
Bro, look at the fucking questions again, bro. I want to make sure I don't.
I did add some new ones at the last second just to throw you guys off.
Okay, all right, but yeah, that's my opinion on mass breeding. Completely unnecessary.
All right. Last one up, Alex.
Yeah, I don't know what the next question is, so feel free to just cut me off. But I'm like everybody. I think it's so stupid how many animals are just being produced right now. Like there's you said you phrased it. You said, does the hobby need it? No, it does not. It never has. It never will. Because if you're mass producing something, you need to go on Morph Market. Last time I checked, there was like 60,000 ball pythons for sale. If you have that many animals like in the market available, how, like, there's no reason why anyone should be thinking like, you know what, I kind of want to make some ball pythons. Like, dude, why? It makes absolutely no sense. And I think part of the problem is a lot of people get into the hobby with the intent to breed, or they get an animal only if they can see it, breeding. Like, there's really, I don't want to say the minority, but there's a lot of people that, like, there's not as many people, it feels like, that just want animals to have animals. Like, it's always, I'm gonna get this, and then I'm gonna get this, and then I'm gonna pair them, and then I'm gonna make that. Like, dude, just have animals, just enjoy them. Like, not everybody needs to be a breeder. I think the only time where, like, No, like there's the only time where mass breeding would maybe be fine would be if it's like an animal that's like about to go extinct or whatever. So you want to kind of have a population ready in case we need to release them into the wild. But even then, that's not mass breeding because if they're on the verge of extinction and you have to do that in captivity, then the supply isn't so high to the point that I'd even consider it um, mass breeding. So no, there's too many of them, and people just end up giving them away, or they don't end up finding homes for them. Like there's people that genuinely just kill off like their normal ball pythons because they know it's not worth anything monetarily.
Cobra food.
Oh shit, I didn't even think about that because I was thinking, I was like, damn, I don't even think this is like the first time I'm hearing about people culling, but I didn't think about like cobra food or freezing
they
it
are,
for
dude. Yeah.
some of the snake
Yeah.
eaters.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm pretty much in agreement with everybody here. I think that potentially back then in the day when we didn't have things like social media and it was more word of mouth, there was a distinct person to go through, such as there was like a ball python guy, and I feel like this was back when importing was a lot more relevant, as well as we go back into more CITES laws. It becomes less and less about importing and more about breeding. But at this point in time, I don't think there's a need to be for one specific facility to be pumping out 10,000 animals a year when we have just such an easy way to connect with everyone. I think when you do start getting the facilities that are getting larger and larger, the quality and shortcuts start being taken more, the quality goes down more and more, and there seems to be a bit of a higher death rate, almost like a percentage base of animals that are going to fall when you have one person, either one company with X amount of employees, so far and so forth. Stuff just goes down as you get bigger and bigger. I remember hearing interviews by Reptiles by Mac, which is one of our largest like quote unquote like mill breeder, I don't know whatever you want to call it, and they were saying employees would have to care for something around like 1,000 animals in an 8-hour shift, and that's just wild. How do you care for 1,000 animals in 8 hours? Could you imagine that? It's crazy. So you're just not thinking them as animals anymore. They're just this drawer to be clean paper. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm pretty against it. I think it played a little bit of a bigger part back in the day, but for now, I don't think it's really needed that much as it used to be.
Can I just throw in another curveball?
Yeah, for sure.
Someone made quite a good point, obviously, being cobra food. Now, this isn't, I haven't got an opinion on this. It's genuinely just a question that I think might be an interesting one. But where do we draw the line? Because obviously, you get day-old chicks that are bred to be food. You get rats that are bred to be food. You get frogs that are bred to be food. So do we draw the line and say you can't breed normal royals or normal ball pythons to be food? Or
No.
do you see what I mean? Like,
if you do it humanely, I think it's okay.
Okay.
And give them a good life, I think it's okay. Don't feed them live. Kill them first. But I do think it's okay. Because again, why is that life more valid than a chicken or a bug? If you do it humanely and do it right, I think it's okay.
There you go.
Cobra's got to eat too.
We've got bins full of cockroaches. At what point do we go, all right, you've got a high level of sentience potentially and things like that, but is it okay to breed snakes to feed to other snakes in the same way you breed rodents to feed snakes? I guess the answer for me would have been similar. It was as long as it's done ethically, but I'm just curious to see what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, does anyone disagree?
So I think that's a really interesting question, and it's one that I've been dealing with honestly for a couple of years, and it's one I don't quite have an answer to. And it centers around, why is one life worth more than the other in our eyes? Why is this okay but this is not? And I can't refute that. I mean, something about someone making snakes for the sole purpose of feeding it to another animal, as much as it like rubs me the wrong way, and I do not like it, I can't logically say that is wrong. But people that breed rats to feed them to their snakes, that is fine. So It's a tough one, man. I think more people see snakes as pets than people see rats as pets. There are people that keep them as pets. But I think it's because we've labeled them as pets. We see like all these other countries and China, like they're like eating actual dogs and shit, and people are like, oh my god, like this is crazy, they're eating dogs. right? Because we have them as pets. But here we're eating cows. Like, you
Baiting
know what I
me.
mean?
Don't bait
Like,
me. Don't bait me.
it was a real example. It's culture, dude. It's like Asian culture, dude. They eat this shit. So I don't know, man. I think it's weird. And I really don't have an answer to it, but I think it's a really good question. Like, why do we, see animals one way versus another? My simple rule is, if it's an insect, fuck it. Anything else, like,
Jesus
I guess.
Christ.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one, Alex. Like rats, quail, all that kind of stuff. I don't think twice. But if I had a ball python or something that was killed humanely, it would feel weird with inside myself because I view that more as a pet. And some people have pet gerbils and stuff like that, and guinea pigs, and they kind of feed, and we feed those animals to like big piranhas and stuff. So. Me personally, I wouldn't do it unless it was like the last resort option that I had. But I also understand, like, if it's done humanely and it is food, how are we putting value on one life over another? So,
Yeah. That was a good question.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't have any problem with it. I think what was said, a life's a life. I personally I keep rats. I breed rats as pets. I do the little morphs and stuff. So the Dumbos, whatever.
Nice.
It's actually the main reason why I got out of ball pythons was because I started breeding them as feeders, and because especially with baby ball pythons, it's so hard to get them to take their first meals as frozen thawed. Again, I'm a pretty inexperienced snake guy, so other ball python keepers might think I'm a jackass for saying that. But I hated feeding live. There was some of my males, they would not eat frozen thawed. I had to feed them live. I could not stand it, so I pretty much got out of snakes altogether. I have an Amazon tree boa and a BCI for the red tail Nazis that hate when I call her a red tail. But at the end of the day, I think, circle of life and animals got to eat. And especially for some of these I'm trying to think of other species. Because I know, like, Boega are more of, like, frogs and stuff. I know king cobras and other colubrids are snakes, but I can't think of any other specific colubrids. But if an animal's main diet is that thing, then for sure you got to feed it what its dietary requirement is, or be like me and just choose not to keep that species.
Yeah.
Facts.
Sweet. All right, I gotta take a quick intermission, use the bathroom. So you guys I'm gonna blue ball you guys for the 5 seconds it's gonna take. What is your guys' favorite animal that you guys keep while I go to the bathroom? Then we'll get back into the big questions. Brad, you go first.
All right. Oh man, that's such a toss-up. Really, I'm working on building out a room for my dream species, so I really like them all for different reasons. My Lanthanotus boreensis I just got. I mean, super cool animal just to watch feed. They do death rolls like alligators. I mean, the thing smashes night crawlers, but they are pretty. They hide unless it's really feeding time. My coming eye, I mean, dude, he's a beast. He's super social. I mean, he'll come when called. My blue tree monitor is more of a, look at kind of species. He comes out of my arm a little bit here and there, but I mean, they're just a super cool animal. And then the Mertens, a build I'm doing right now for them, to be able to watch them when they get in this new build, just kind of run wild in there, and their feeding response is out of this world. So I can't really pinpoint it down to one. If I had to choose right now, it would probably be Jupiter and my Piranha's coming eye.
I knew it.
Love that guy.
Yeah.
That's my favorite too, man. I love Jupiter, bro.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, he's super chill, man. Well, you guys met him, and I mean,
Dude, he's so cool.
like literally, yeah, you were hand feeding him quail eggs, like, and he just took it super non-chill or super delicately, and I mean, Will, I think you got freaked out a little bit there for a minute.
Bro.
You came your fear, and
I'm used to the Argus, man. I'm used to the Argus. He
man lost his bottle.
Touche.
He doesn't take it. He
If I
doesn't
had
take it
Mertens,
gentle. Yeah, dude.
yeah, if I had Mertens before, and then getting him, even thinking about, hand feeding him, I'd be weary as hell
bro.
too, bro.
Come on, man. Cut me some
And
slack.
losing his bottle.
Position, bro, and I didn't drop the egg because I
Okay,
panicked.
well, he also nutted on you, so there's something to say there. So I'm gonna just,
Yeah, bro, the Argus are insane. You would, especially for like my smaller females, you like blink and she's on one side of the enclosure to grabbing the food on the other side. It was insane how fast their feeding response was and like how on point they are.
dude, they're something else. Like you have to keep eyes on Argus at all times, dude. Like it, even the most social ones, if you don't keep your eyes on them, dude, it could be
Yeah,
a bad
this
mistake.
happens to you when you don't. And there he goes again. Fantastic. Oh no, he's back. He's back.
I'm gonna switch to a different network in a
No,
minute.
why are you using Wi-Fi though? Like, why don't you just go on like LTE?
You want me to try that?
Yeah, dude, just give, if your phone is fine, just give your laptop a hotspot.
All right, while he does that, let's get into the juicy stuff. So these are some questions that I'm really excited for. I kind of
All right,
generalized
this is
this
LTE.
one.
I don't think this is any better.
Well, you're not
Right.
frozen yet, so we don't know. Oh no, wait.
Well, we can hear you at least.
Yeah, if we can hear you, I think that's fine enough. All right, next question of the day. Do you think breeding? I kind of generalized this to be a couple of different things, so we don't have to go into specific species. But personally, retics are the specific species I'm thinking about. Do you think breeding large lizards/snakes in a large number will affect our hobby later down the road? So this is numbers of these giant animals that I would say the majority of our hobby can't humanely house in, and they're being bred by the thousands a year. Who we start for? Let's start with Riddle. Let's get a UK perspective.
I can't see it ending well because the problem is again they mass produce the major. I'm not going to label all of them, but a lot of the breeders, excuse me, and the sellers, they don't really do a lot to make sure that these babies go into the right homes. Where you should do. They just want to make a quick sale. A lot of them. Now, once the hobby starts getting flooded with giant snakes that aren't being kept properly, and then you've got rescues being full of giant snakes or snakes that are being potentially released into the wild and all these negative things that could potentially happen, yeah, it's going to have an effect because I don't see how it could be a good thing. How many people do we know of that could keep a giant, upwards of 20-foot snake? There's just no way. It's very, very. You've basically got to give them their own room if you're going to do it properly. And like I say, they are very easy to breed. They're easy to buy, and I can't see it being a positive at all. I hope I'm wrong, but I can't see it being a positive for the hobby in the future. It just can't be. It's an animal with very specific needs that very few people can offer. So yeah.
All right, Alex, what you got for us?
Yeah, I agree 100%. There's no way that that's even ever going to be close to a positive. I know you asked about if it's going to negatively impact the hobby. So aside from the actual animals, the impact that it'll have on the hobby is, and it's already having it, is it's a horrible, horrible look, I think, because like River said, most people can't, keep animals that way. Not that way. Like most people just can't keep a giant snake properly. Sure, you have these people that, and mind you, like the worst part is I've seen this with like reputable sources too. They'll have their retics or berms or whatever, dude. They'll throw it in an 8x2x2, like completely bare, nothing there. Like for me, I'm sorry, that's no better than a rack. That's just as bad in my opinion, even if you give it lighting, which I mean, again, a lot of these people like probably don't do that anyways. It's just so bad for the animals. And again, there's no reason to be doing it. And honestly, I think anyone that's actually breeding them and getting, dozens of babies per year, they have to know most of the people you're probably selling them to are either other breeders that are going to keep them in smaller cages, or someone that probably doesn't even know what they're getting themselves into and is just not going to keep it properly, it's just going to be a giant snake in a tiny box its whole life. So I heavily, heavily disagree, and I really do not think that anybody should be breeding these animals. Like realistically, there's no need to be keeping them in the first place. Again, if you're that person that can have the room, they don't need to be mass produced. Like a few breeders in the states, like would supply everyone that can adequately keep them.
It's funny, I almost had a little bit of a follow-up, which was going to be how these large snakes, I'm using retics as a specific example because they seem to display at least somewhat of arboreal nature that wants to climb, and how we're keeping them, again, the 8x2x2s, but
It's a joke.
yeah, the biggest issue does seem to be, especially with these large snakes, is they contain huge numbers of clutches, 30 to 60, I believe. I mean, again, depending on the species. So, as Alex is saying, it only takes a few guys to be able to supply those who can humanely keep them through the entire country. We don't need that many. But I'll keep going on. If you do want to add, we'll just add this for the last two, and you guys can come back. Or I guess Riddler can come back, because Alex already talked about it, about how these large animals are being kept as breeders, and then again with the hobby. So Brad, you're up.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're mass producing these large snakes and large varandas, that's going to bring costs down. And if cost goes down, I think that opens up the door for more people to do impulse buys. And half them aren't even going to know that it's going to get, 5, 6, 7 foot for some of these varandas, and like you're saying, 20 foot for some of these snakes. And then what happens when it gets too big? And if you have this mass influx of these huge animals, where do they go? Because it's not like they live 3 or 4 years, right? If kept healthy, they're going to be living 15, 20, even 30 years plus. So I really think if you made it harder for people to get larger animals, I feel like one, it would be more expensive. So the people that are actually buying them are going to be all in. They're going to have the money to do it because they're going to be more expensive, and they're going to want to have this animal for the rest of their life. It's not going to be quote unquote a throwaway animal if the market is saturated with all these big reptiles. So yeah, I'm against it. I don't see it benefiting the hobby in the long run, especially, I mean, since social media has come out, you don't need to really be word of mouth anymore. You can just pop on a Facebook group and say, is anybody selling X, Y, and Z, and have it shipped to your door 2 days later, because they saw a cool picture of somebody that posted something on one. So yeah, I see it being a disaster in 5, 10 years, if not sooner.
All right, Will, what you got for us?
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, I missed the question, but I assume it was, is it a positive of people mass producing like big animals, like big retics and monitors?
Yeah, basically producing large retics, large constrictors in general. So we can add berms, rocks to this. Although I don't know that many people that are doing rocks. And do you think it's going to have a negative impact on the hobby later down the road?
Yeah, I think 99.9% of people should stop producing berms, retics, rocks, water monitors, Argus monitors, black throats, because there's way too many of them and such a small fraction of people can properly care for them. And so many of them are going to people who don't know what they're doing, and the animals are suffering. We have more than enough to go around. And like you said, Dakota, we only need, or I think Alex said it, I forget who said it, we only need a couple people to supply those animals to those who can truly care for them. So we need to stop. We need to stop. That's all I have to say.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm pretty much in conjunction. I really liked what Brad was saying. And I had this philosophy for a long time, is that I think now I'm, again, more of a lizard and now gecko guy than I was ever with snakes. But as far as monitor lizards go, I don't think any monitor lizard should have the price tag under $1,000, because I think that is just a financial incentive that, what you said, keeps away these impulse buyers that probably don't either have the necessary means later down the road or the idea. It makes you take a second and be like, all right, I'm going to drop 4 figures I better know what I'm getting into. I better actually be really passionate about this. And then you can learn, oh, well, it needs this big of a space. Do I have this big of a space? Because at the end of the day, we live in a capitalistic society in America. I don't know how you UK boys do it. Money does talk, and as much as it sucks, we do have price tags on these animals, and you are going to pay a lot more attention to an animal that you paid $1,000 for than you paid, $20 for these Sabs and Nile monitors, which is absolutely insane. Um, yeah, pretty much everything else everyone said was pretty spot on, and what I agree with. I don't think I have much to add to that.
Unfortunately, it's supply and demand though. Like as beneficial as maybe $1,000 price tag on a Savannah monitor would be, it's supply and demand and the ease of them being imported. Like they can make a profit on selling them for $30, so they're going to continue. Because if you up them to $30, no one's gonna buy, or up them to $1,000, no one's gonna buy them, right? Because they're all going to go captive bred if they want one. So unfortunately,
Maybe in generalizing
yeah.
all monitor lizards, because I feel like there is a pretty big difference between, let's say, a Argus, which is a big male, although it's like what 4.5, 5. That's a big foot difference between an Argus and a Sab, which is I would leave 3 maxing out at 4. There's a real big size difference in the activity level. So I guess I'm
Yeah.
more pertaining towards these larger species of animals. The Niles, I can't justify the Niles at 15. I think it's I understand the supply and demand tactic,
Yeah,
but
no, you're right.
I mean that's a
But
lizard that's with a nasty attitude that is going to get just as big, around the same size, I would say, as something like an Asian water monitor.
yeah, up to 7, possibly 8 feet for different localities of like Niloticus and Ornatus. Like they get big, dude. Like big, and the Ornates even like thicker than the regular Niles.
Well, I mean, just put it in perspective,
Pause.
money wise, over here, and it basically has cemented a lot of the points that have been made. Over here, the last few croc monitors that have been for sale have been around about the £10,000 mark.
Wow.
That's not someone that's going to be buying it, putting it in a box and thinking, right, how do I look after this thing? If anyone's buying that, they've got the room, they know the species, they know what they're getting into. Someone that drops 30 quid on a leopard gecko, that animal could end up in a glass tank with no heat. And if it dies, that's 30 quid gone. But someone who's getting a croc monitor, just as an example, knows what they're getting into, and they know they don't want to lose. Again, putting monetary value on it, they don't want to lose that 10 grand. Obviously, they don't want to lose the animal, because if you're willing to spend that much on an animal, then you obviously love the animal. But at the same time, there is a monetary value involved. So the more, because like we say, the more access you have to them, the lower the price, the more people, the more accessible they become, and the more you get in rescues and that die too early. So yeah, it's savage, and it does need to be looked at, but unfortunately it's a very tough one to look at. So, but no, I agree with all the points that have been made.
10,000's crazy, dude. Dude, you can get crocs over here, bro. I could probably get an imported juvenile croc, a male, for under 2,000. Like
Really?
if you know, yes, dude.
If you get the friend's price, maybe.
If you
opinion invalidated
look,
because he's frozen.
And that's what he gets for trying to flex all his connects, bro.
Bro, I'm just saying, they're the bigger stuff is so readily accessible over here that it's like there's not even that much of a barrier to entry. Obviously, a couple grand, 2-3K is a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
But
I think
it's
the
not
2
like
3K
10K.
is I think the 2 3K is a pretty good set for a croc monitor, just because.
Yeah, an imported one,
Exactly.
especially.
It's especially then you have that risk of if it is going to make it, if it's not, when you do most importation things. But I believe even our captive bred crocs, which is very few, are going for somewhere around those. What would that be? 5
10K.
figures? Yeah, 10K.
No, yeah,
I'd
10K.
imagine. Because I think you also have to take into account that our importing process, I believe, is a lot more lax than the UK importing process. I think it's a lot easier for us to get these animals in than it would be, and a lot less expensive when it comes to customs and everything that goes into that.
It depends where you're getting stuff out of.
Fair enough.
Because if it
oh my gosh,
in the wild, then I think it is. Yeah, did it freeze again?
Oh, this is painful.
Dude, I've tried to switch to like 2 different Wi-Fis and LTE. So, am I back?
No, you back. You back.
Yeah.
Okay. Man, I've tried to switch to like 3 different networks. But if you're getting stuff out of the wild, yeah, it's easy to get stuff here in America, but like private to private sector, you guys in Europe have it way easier. Trust, like, you guys have it way easier. They don't like us in America, bro. Europe, Australia, they do not like us, man.
Europe, yes, but
Yeah.
obviously the problem is with the UK. Obviously, since Brexit and we're
That's
no
true.
longer part of
That's true.
Europe,
That's
it's
true. Yeah.
becoming even harder.
Yeah.
In the words of Will, pause. But yeah, it's difficult. It's proven difficult. Like the old CITES, the paperwork, all of that. Which, like I say, to an extent, I can't see it being a bad thing. But then, are you starting to up the possibilities of animals being smuggled in? But that's probably a whole other section that we don't have to get into. And, yeah.
Bro, that is the most wild video to pause on. Did you guys see that shit of Will? He's like,
What?
homie was puckered for like 10 seconds. That was insane.
Yeah, no, why
Clip
are
that
you
chat.
doing that with your lips, bro? You're looking at 4 grown-ass men on camera and you're posing up, bro.
Bro, y'all are wild. Y'all are
I feel so bad.
hit a man while he's down, right? Hit a man while he's down. Okay.
Okay, so
So
this
we
is
were
kind of
looking at
a
all-
follow-up to it, and it mostly, I think we can actually switch this to breeding and keeping. Do you think the standards that we've set as a hobby for these large lizards and snakes, again, retics, sperms, rocks, anacondas, anything that goes into that, do you think... I'm sorry, I'm looking at 2 at the same time. I apologize. This is the question. Do you think we should be giving a better standard as a hobby to these large retics or snakes / the venomous? Something that I've really noticed is I can see it from both point of views, especially when we're talking about the venomous keeping, is it does come to the keeper's safety, but the next question comes to my mind is if we do have to lock this into a plastic cube, usually the visions, you are having these very large cobras, other venomous snakes, in these very small, very minimalistic enclosures for the keeper's safety. If that's something that where we have to take this much away from the animal, is it right to be owning this species? And then overall, just how we're keeping the reticulated pythons, the next one that comes to mind, just because of, again, they're I swear to fucking God, Will. What do you guys think? Let's start with Brad. I haven't heard from Brad in a while.
I mean, I think you can always keep better.
Yeah.
You can always up the ante. You can always make something bigger. You can always make something look better. You can always add, like example for myself, like when building, what can I do to enhance their living experience? And I built like these little 40 millimeter fans. I took apart a Miss King nozzle and put it in there just to have some natural airflow going around inside the enclosure. So I really think that even with the builds that I have, I wish I can go bigger. I want to move down to Florida so I can do some outdoor stuff.
I think half your shit's illegal in Florida.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, you can always go bigger and better.
All right, we're gonna skip Will from now because he's just a
Wait,
lamb
I'm
at the
alive.
moment.
I'm
Oh.
alive. I'm alive.
Oh, all right. Will, you go.
I'm just testing my internet speed. Yeah,
Will's
so
fucking
can you repeat the question?
ITing this shit.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Bro, you're never getting invited on another podcast.
All right, the question was, do you think we should give a better standard as a hobby to these large retics / venomous animals?
Yes, I think we should definitely up the standard. I know Alex touched on it in his video. I don't know why it seems like the common theme for most large constrictor and most venomous keepers is to keep them in shitty little boxes. I don't know what the hell. When did that become the standard? Why? They're incredible animals and they deserve a proper environment just as much as anything else.
Unbelievable.
This fucking guy, man.
Let's give him a second, maybe. Oh no, he's just gone.
Yeah,
I'll go next, man. Well,
look, can I just quickly just say, Gary Gadman, he tried kicking me before this stream even started to bring Paul in. Kick Will.
Yeah, no, you did a great guest there. However, I can't replace a fellow Latino with another fucking dirty. You're out of luck, man. So as far as the question, so Dakota, you touched on this when you were asking the question, about the venomous stuff. Like, it's for the keeper's kind of safety to have them this way, dude. Then don't keep them. Like, if you have to compromise any aspect of the animal's care for yourself, you shouldn't be keeping it. It's not like some kind of physiological need that you have to keep um, venomous snakes. Like, keeping reptiles, it's not, a need. It's a want. Like, you can do it. But if you're gonna have to compromise care on any kind of species, you shouldn't be having it. So I honestly, dude, I think the hobby itself is pretty selfish. I mean, we have these animals in small enclosures, and I mean small like compared to the outside world, um, in our rooms, but yeah, I think that for that very least, we should be doing more. And, it's for their safety. It's not a good excuse, dude, because there's no reason to be having them in the first place. Just like, for example, it's kind of similar to the rats. Oh, it's better for the keeper because they save space, money, whatever. Dude, fuck the keeper, man. Like, we're supposed to be in this for the animals. And somewhere down the line, I think people are just losing sight of that. As far as, do I think the standard is kind of at a good place right now, or do you think we can do better? We're talking a lot about these big animals, big snakes, lizards, the venomous stuff. I think the standard for everything should be higher. But I do appreciate that we focus in on those animals because those seem to be the ones that are most often screwed over due to their size. Again, most people can't adequately do it. So I really do think that we need to just, I don't want to say like police it more, but just hold others accountable and don't let it, like if you see someone doing it and you have some kind of relationship with them, bro, don't be afraid to check them. Like, dude, why do you have this animal in so and so, cage? And I think if we start doing that and stop, posting so much about like these animals in these small enclosures, I think eventually, more people will move towards, I guess, the new standard. Because at the end of the day, like, people are very easy to influence. If everyone or most people are doing it one way, I think the other people, a good chunk of them will probably convert as well.
Yeah, the
At least
herd
that's what I think.
mentality. One thing I do want to know, or specifically are talking about the private keeping. There's definitely a little bit. I feel like we get a lot more nuance when we're especially talking about venomous. If we're talking about milking for anti-venom, all the positive things that come from research and discovery centers, everything like that. But for this instance, for this topic, we're just talking about the private keeping hobby. Before, I just want to catch that in chat before people are like, oh, what about this and this? Or people that comment on this later on, because I am going to leave this one live or this video up instead of archive it, since we got the homies on. It's not just me being an ass for a couple of hours. Was that Brad? Did you go?
Yeah,
I did, yeah, but I missed the fact that you said venomous in there too. And I think whether it's venomous or not, it should still be up to standard.
Yeah, I agree. It's a tough one, and I understand, but at the same time, I feel like I have to stick with the ideology because it's the one that you can make the most sense of without there being. I feel like there's a lot of cope in the reptile hobby, and it was cope that I personally held on to for a very, very long time. It wasn't until the Project Jungle thing we've done here from last year that I've rethought a lot of my ideology in when it comes to keeping reptiles. I'm sorry, I got distracted by, I believe that's the blue tree monitor. I can see like little things moving bottom of the cork.
Oh no, that's just my reflection. He's up there.
Oh, that is your reflection. God damn it. Yeah, we'll come back. I'm not sure where he is. Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think I do have to stick with the ideology that if it is if you're from the belief that it's the absolute necessary that you keep a 6-foot snake in a 4x2x2, a snake that is again a colubrid. I'm mostly thinking like the cobra species, animals that are really moving around a lot and that are a highly active animal, and they're being kept in these very small enclosures. Then maybe it's time to rethink if you can't handle the species at a larger, more naturalistic environment, then maybe it's not a species for you at this point in time.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like, we all we all want things. We all want, you know, as humans, we're attracted to our interests and we want to keep stuff. And we will do our best to get our hands on those things. Now, if they're easily accessible, a lot of the times we ignore some of the necessities. So, like we say, for example, someone really, really, really wants a Burmese python, they're going to go out and get one because it's easy to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're set up to do so. And again, the only thing that suffers is the animal. So should it be held to a higher standard? Yes. The problem is you could say we need to vet people, but who does it and how thorough do you need to be? Because you could go to an expo, you can ask all the right questions. As the breeder and seller, you could say, how big is your enclosure? What's your heat sources? What, you know, how big is the enclosure going to be there? And a person could know what the answers are meant to be and just feed you a load of nonsense.
Yep.
But unless you go round to their house, you don't know that. But that person wants a Burmese python, they'll do what they can to get it. And in their heads, it's maybe a case of I'll upgrade in the future. And, you know, where 5 years down the line, I can do this, I can do that. But you need to know that you're set up for them in the here and now. So it is a tough one. And people do need to be called out respectfully. You know, I'm not saying bully people into not having these animals, but they need to be checked. And with the venomous stuff, if you're not, we see too many venomous keepers. And you did bring up a good point, to be fair, Dakota. Like, I was thinking that as well. Like, what about the venomous ones that are kept in racks for anti-venom and research? I think that's completely different, like you say.
Yeah.
But when it comes to venomous keepers who are YouTubers or just keep them as hobbyists, they're not kept well enough. Keeping a cobra on Aspen with a hide in a water bowl isn't good enough, where it can barely, you know, lift itself up and do what it needs to do. It's not good enough, and it's not a good enough excuse to say it's for my safety. If you can't see the animal, don't open the enclosure. You know, be aware of your surroundings. I'm not a venomous keeper, so it's obviously, it might sound like I'm talking absolute nonsense, but if you can't see, I mean, it's like those of us with monitor lizards. If you can't see where the monitor is, you're a lot more weary just in case they come out trying to take off a digit. You know what I mean? You don't just go in and start sticking your hands in nest boxes without knowing where the animal is. So again, there's these excuses being made, and I don't think they're good enough. So yeah, we need to be holding these people accountable, and these animals need better standards.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was definitely one of those people that you described. Not with venomous. I don't really have much of an interest in keeping venomous, mainly because 90% of them are snakes, not lizards, and I'm more of a lizard guy. But when it comes to these larger monitor lizards, I was that way. I got a couple of monitor lizards. I kept them in grow tents. Not the brightest idea. They never broke out like everyone said, but they just were not kept to the standard that I have set myself, especially at this point in time. But it was always the ideology that I'm going to build this, I'm going to build that, it'll be fine. And that stuff just kind of never happened. And so I had these Arguses for years. I definitely have a very negative reputation in the monitor community with how public I am with how I was keeping them in the past.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where, well, for me personally, we had a big bottom line is my house broke, basically. I had to move to where I am now, and I would have to subsidize those Arguses' care even further in order to fit them at my new place. So I then made the decision to give them to other people that had a lot of a better experience and the more capabilities than I had at the time to care for them.
Again, that's you making a decision based on the animal's welfare, and that can only be applauded. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's all well and good making mistakes. I say this time and time again, that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from them. You know, I made mistakes. I kept royal pythons in racks. I moved the load on into hopefully vivarium only homes. The ones that I've got are now in bigger enclosures that I'm trying to keep naturalistic, bioactive, what you want to call it. And I will never hide from the fact that I kept in racks because I've learned from it, and that's fine. You know, it's one of those that I don't think you can be grilled for how you used to keep, but you can be judged on how you currently keep.
Oh, there's a lot of people I think that would disagree with that, but
yeah, well, but that's the thing. Like, do you currently keep Argus in too small enclosures? Not well enough. No.
No,
So
I actually
what's the
I keep
problem?
only very small animals now in very nice enclosures. I've done
There
pretty
you
much
go.
like a 360 or a 180.
Yeah, there you go. So if that's at the end of the day, you can only be judged on what you're doing now. We've all made mistakes in the past. So for those who want to, you know, grill you for the way you used to keep, or even someone sending for me for the way I used to keep, fine. Fill your boots, do what you want to do, say what you want to say. But the here and now, try and judge me on what we're doing now. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Fill your boots. I love it.
I mean, is that
Bring
UK?
down these British terms, man.
Is that a UK saying? No,
It's a
must
UK saying for sure. All
What does
right.
that even?
So a lot of this we've been talking out of our asses, because especially with this venomous stuff, I still think it's okay for people like us to have an opinion, even though we don't specifically keep
Yeah.
this necessary species. But I think it also does need to be taken with a grain of salt at some point. But it's good to have a fresh perspective, because I feel like the keepers are going to be a little bit biased, because you have to be defensive because you are owning this specific species. But I do want to kind of switch gears a little bit to what we all do, which is Reptile YouTube, and kind of get more into that. So my next question is going to be, do you think reptile YouTubers should be held to a higher standard than the average keeper? Let's start with, we'll start with Alex.
So I was thinking about this one for a while. I'm gonna go with yes, just because I think when you are on YouTube and you have any kind of, platform, you're gonna. I mean, you're called an influencer for a reason. Like, people are gonna see that, and a lot of people may try to emulate what you're doing. So I think if you're gonna be posting videos or photos, whatever it is, I mean, you said YouTube, so videos. I think that you have a responsibility to shine these animals and the hobby in the best possible light. Um, I think we're seeing more of it now. I still think we have a long way to go, but I have no issues with YouTubers being held to a higher standard. I think it's better to err on the side of caution than not enough. I don't want to name drop, but for example, like, there's a really big YouTube channel. They have, hundreds of thousands of subs, and they have, again, I said it earlier, the retics in these plain 8x2x2s, monitors in smaller enclosures, like whatever it is. And, they're posting videos, getting thousands of views, and that's in the background every time that they're on. Eventually, like, just watching that kind of content so many times over and over and over, it's like, okay, yeah, this is fine. This is the way to do it. So and so does it. Like, you've just seen it so many times.
It's going to normalize it.
It normalizes it. It kind of desensitizes you to it. Like, the first time you saw that, you were probably like, oh shit, like, what is that? But then you like what the topic of the video was about, so you stick around. And then by the 5th, 10th video you watch, you see these animals in these crappy cages. You don't even think anything of it. So I think we should be held to a higher standard. I think everybody needs to up their keeping. And if you're not going to up your keeping, then have the decency of not showing us your shitty cages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I said I wasn't going to be up in chat, and then I'm just constantly, it's the ADD. Whenever I see some pop, I'm like, ooh. Riddler, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to what Alex has said. At the end of the day, if you're broadcasting and showing your setups, or even not on purpose, even if they're just in the background, people with less knowledge, understanding, they are trusting you with the way you keep. So if they see you keeping a leopard gecko without overhead heat and UVB and just a heat map for belly heat, they're going to think that's the right way of doing it. And they're not going to question it. They're not going to say any better, because you are, technically speaking, an influencer. So yeah, I think they should be, or you know what, we should be held to a higher standard, because we're trying to show how it should be done, how it can be done. And the problem with people is they can be lazy and they will find shortcuts. So if you are, I won't say his name, but there was recently a fairly big YouTuber who said that some snakes, and named a few snakes, don't need to be kept with UVB. Now again, I'm not going to grill the guy. I'm just talking about his opinion. And the problem is with that is people are going to look at it and go, I see what he's saying, that they don't have to, they're going to look at it and go, oh, I don't have to. I can save 70 quid on a UVB unit then. Lovely job. I can save money. That's what is going to be looked at. And now, is it up to that person to make sure stupid people don't take shortcuts? No. But you're an influencer. You will influence people whether you want to or not. Don't say things like that because people will take shortcuts. So, yeah, people need to be held accountable, and especially if you're broadcasting it and trying to show others how to do it. So yeah, I think we should. Like, everyone should be held to a certain standard, but if you're putting it out there for the rest of the world to see, which, all right, even though me, for example, I'm not reaching the rest of the world. If it was to happen at some point in the future and I've got shitty care and a lot of people are seeing it, that's wrong. So yeah.
Yeah, I also believe
Yeah.
that can be led to a slippery slope, as you're saying, with some species might necessarily need UVB because that just brings to, we don't know what the experience level of the viewer is. That could be, okay, if this species doesn't need it, these look pretty similar, I bet that like this species also doesn't need it. It can just lead to, like I said, it can go down a road that might not be good for the animal later down, even if that's not what the, even if there's no like malice intent behind it. There
Yeah.
could be repercussions later down the road for it. But all right, Will, what do you got for us?
I agree with everyone that's said it already.
God damn it, we've got no debating going on. I gotta pick better questions. And he
Yeah, I mean,
froze!
basically, it can be summed up.
Dude, holy shit. Oh, there he is.
No, he's back. I'm sorry. No,
All right,
keep going.
I'll sum it up with one sentence. With great power comes great responsibility, or with great influence comes great responsibility. So if we want the influence, then we're going to have the responsibility of having eyes on us. So got to set a good example.
Damn,
Yeah.
you should have froze instead of that. That was rough.
Was it? I think that's very applicable, actually.
You think, was it based?
You said what?
Was it based?
Nothing, go ahead.
I guess so, man. I guess so.
All right, Brad. I'm sorry. I feel like we're picking on Will too much. I'm sorry.
No,
Feel
no.
bad.
Well,
Will's not firing back anymore. He's like, yeah, I guess.
Bro, Will is honestly being so mild mannered today.
I'll be honest. Before we started this, we had like a couple of like in chats, and I was like, dude, this might not go well. Like, I think it's gonna devolve into chaos. I'm very.
It's gone good so far.
Yeah, we're very
Minus the
professional.
Wi-Fi.
I think everyone here. But all right, Brad, what do you got for us?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think definitely, yeah. YouTubers, pet YouTubers, reptile YouTubers should definitely be held to a higher standard for a few different reasons, right? So, if you put out a video and your husbandry isn't up to par, and somebody's watching it and they know that, they're going to be able to decipher and see the difference. Say, okay, I'm not going to keep my animal like that. But what about the people that are getting, animals from pet stores, and the pet store person tells me, you got to keep them like this. Okay, whatever. And then they jump on YouTube and then they see somebody's, video, and that animal isn't kept up to par. They're going to think that is the norm, right? Or if they watch, another YouTuber influencer that has their husbandry, out of this world, doing next level stuff, they're going to question, wonder, and see, okay, I need to step up my game. So I think the power of YouTube and putting out good content, good quality care, and all that is just going to help to benefit the community, especially that person just getting into the hobby. I know for myself, when I build my enclosures, just being a content creator, I step up my game too, because of that aspect. I want to put out something that might have a domino effect for somebody else to be able to watch and get inspired by and add to their enclosure builds as well. Riddler and I, we've talked time and time again just how, the building of these enclosures keeps us up at night with new ideas and new ways we can do things and how we can benefit the animal and all that kind of stuff. So our mind is constantly going with how we can, make each video a little bit better. And with that being said, how are we making it better? We're making it better by enhancing, the husbandry of the animals and the care that goes along with it. So, 100%. I think it's complete shit if you're going to just, have an animal and not have good care, good feeding, good vitamins, all that kind of stuff for them, and you put it out on YouTube. because if somebody, like I said, sees that and thinks that that's all you need to do, that's what they're going to keep doing. So if all YouTubers, you know, in the game are stepping it up and trying to advance in a productive, positive way, it's only going to benefit the hobby.
Yeah.
Agreed. So I had a very strong opposition to this earlier in my YouTube career. Then as it's gone on, I've kind of reconsidered. Where at first I definitely felt like, well, I am just the average keeper. I just make YouTube videos, so I don't think there should be necessarily a difference between me and someone doing it privately. I definitely got a lot of criticism because I did take a lot of shortcuts in the past, but I always felt like, oh, you know, the only reason why I'm getting criticism, and I do still think to this day, I've seen how some of these other breeders, especially with like New Caledonia, some of the more common species, how they truly are keeping their breeders. If people saw how they were breeding, there would definitely be some questions being raised by how much love we get some of these breeders. But at the end of the day, I feel like I think the biggest thing that did change my mind is number one. I believe all of us, right? We all hit that monetization code, right? Or the queue. Yeah, so we're all capitalizing off of this. We all make money off of our YouTubes. We all make money on, you know, exploiting our pets for whatever reason, how we're doing it. And so I do think that not only for whatever's been stated here for the viewers and everything, but I think for ourselves, since we do in some way, shape, or form monetarily gain from these animals, we should be held to the higher standard and be treating them better because, well, just from the basic capitalistic standpoint is you want to be treating stuff good that makes you money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me throw this question out there. So let's say, because we all create content, and your best performing video, we're all making money on it, right? So it's bringing in money monthly. Your best performing video is your worst care guide ever, and it's outdated. What do you do with that video?
Delete that shit.
You got to take it down, bro.
Bro, delete it and make a new one, dude. Just revamp it. I mean, if your care has improved and your knowledge has improved that much, number one, dude, your video skills have probably improved. So, I mean, sucks, dude. Like, whatever, that video was making you money. This new one can make you money as well. Probably um, even more money. I mean, anyone that's already seen that old video may not watch the new one, but anyone that would have watched that old one is now going to watch your new video anyways. And even if you thought it wouldn't perform well, or you don't plan on making like a follow-up, you know, updated version, dude, who cares? Just delete it. Like, if the care guide is that bad to the point that it may actually put like these animals at risk, delete it. If it's bad in the sense of like, you know, you don't like how you edited it, or maybe, you know, there was one or two things there that was like a little debatable, that's different. But if it's like ass, get rid of that shit, dude.
Couldn't agree more.
I'm with it.
Yeah, I think if it's at any point, any educational content that does have faulty education, no matter how good the video is, should be taken down.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
I think that'd be a pretty hard pill to swallow for anyone here to be like, nah, keep that shit up.
Well, I tell you what we can say is for anyone watching this goes, I don't want to take it down because it will take away my viewing hours. Don't forget, you can just put it as unlisted or private. So you can keep the viewing hours if you so wish, but new people won't see it, and obviously it won't be, because obviously if it's a detriment to the animals, then you don't want it. But if you're really that set on keeping a specific amount of YouTube hours, just set it as unlisted. No one else can watch it, but you won't lose any hours.
No, it's got to be public. For monetization, it has to be public viewing hours, though.
Yeah. But you've already made that money. But if you don't want to...
Okay. I feel you.
You lose the viewing hours, don't you? Okay. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, I feel you.
Sweet. All right, so there's actually an interesting question in chat. Usually you have to super chat, but I actually want to know, do all reptile YouTubers vape? I think it's just me and Brad. We're both hitting clouds, brother. One of the question was, who makes the most money on here? I want to think, I haven't checked out everyone's channels like thoroughly, but I think Brad might be making more money than me.
It's Brad, for sure.
Dude, Brad
has like a lot of views on his channel, and subscribers don't matter anymore. It's like a useless metric.
Dude.
It all matters about views and how long your videos are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but to be fair,
we
right?
don't have to say exact numbers here if that's
Yeah,
something you're not.
but do I really make something every month? I get a little bit of money that might pay, an eighth of what I put into a build. Example, this big 8x4x6 polydarium I'm working on right now, just in zoopoxy, I'm at about $2,800 or $2,800. So
yeah, that shit's expensive. I was just looking into it.
That's not including the tub. That's not including, the animals. That's not including the paint and the lights and the everything that goes into it. So, am I really making money? No, and that was never my goal. My goal for the channel was to be able to educate, show, and inspire. And I didn't see a lot of people doing like step-by-step builds. And I knew that if I were able to put some out in the hopes that if somebody were to watch that, maybe I'd be able to help one person on their journey to build something for their animal to bring it to the next level.
Good answer. Good answer. I stopped the whole purpose of my channel this entire time was, I guess, first of all, to advertise my breeding business, and then now the bioactive stuff. So I don't do the YouTube game and algorithm very well, because I'm more focused on getting a customer base in my community into my specific products. But actually, just to backdrop a little, I forgot to mention this. I do the influencer aspect, which is something, as much as we don't like to admit it, I think it's cringy as fuck for anyone to call themselves an influencer. That's awful. I don't know why anyone would be okay with it. Like, yeah, I'm an influencer for Reptile. Like, that's fucking weird, dude. Cut that shit out.
Yeah.
But there is influence. When I started this bioactive journey and started doing enclosures and everything, it's one of the reasons why I got the idea for the bioactive store is I had so many people in my live streams and in the comments saying that I inspired them to want to do better for their reptile, to remake theirs. And then at that point I was like, well, fuck, why am I giving all the money to like Home Depot and shit that I'm probably going to get? Let's put some money in my pockets.
Yeah.
And so that's really where the bioactive store came to fruition. I absolutely love it. I love seeing people that do the bioactive kits and they get my stuff and build cool stuff with it, and they don't have to worry about all the crappy shit that comes into like Walmart and Home Depot plants, your spider mites, your thrips, all the nasty shit in that substrate.
Yeah, I respect it.
Yeah. Well, then you don't got to go through the whole quarantine process too, because that's where I get most of my plants is from Home Depot. Dakota, if you ever want to send me some for free, I'm all for it. No, but
See,
no,
I get them when they're like this big. So I get shipments of like 100, but they're like in 2-inch pots. So I've been trying to figure out. I wanted to do some influencing advertising, but I don't know many people that keep species that will be okay unless you are okay with growing out a specific species of plant for 6 months before you put it in an enclosure.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because like you're saying, a lot of times when you do get those store-bought ones, they do come with spider mites or something else. So you got to really quarantine them for, almost 4 weeks or so just to feel safe, putting them into your enclosures and stuff.
Yeah. And then even then, if they don't come in with the mites, they come in with, what's it, like the spray.
Fungus nets.
Pesticides.
Yeah, they come in with all those pesticides. That's it. Sorry. It's nearly 2 a.m. here for me, so I'm forgetting some words.
Oh, and for anyone, you guys, we don't have to stick around for the whole thing. Like, if you guys got other shit to do,
Nah, you're good.
I just don't want to feel any responsibility. You have to stick around for the whole time.
Dude.
I don't have a life. I literally woke up today and I'm like, damn, okay, 4 more hours to this stream. I was so stoked for it.
Wait, 4? You woke up at 3?
Yeah, I stay up till like 4 or 5, and my editing schedule is around midnight till the part of the video's done, and so I'm usually not in bed and sleeping until like 4 or 5 in the morning.
You do this full time, right?
Yeah, I do this as a full-time gig, so I have a little bit of leniency with that.
Goals.
Dude, I wish I could do that. I go to sleep at 4, and no matter what, like I'm still awake by like 8, 9.
Especially when you have a newborn baby. I'm getting like 2-3 hours a night.
Yeah, I feel that.
All right, next one for the reptile YouTubers. Do you think reptile YouTubers should be used as an educational source for the hobby? I feel like the standard or generalization that the hobby very much does look down on reptile YouTube as either we're lesser as keepers because we make YouTube videos, and that there's always someone smarter out there and we should not be used as an educational source. So what would you guys have to say to that Let's start with Will for this one.
Dude, honestly, like it's but
Why did I pick that? That's on me. That one's on me.
is it back?
No, you good. You good.
I think it depends on the YouTuber, depends on the content. Personally, I've gotten a lot, almost all positive feedback from like monitor breeders and monitor.
And that's the hardest source to hit. Those are the most stingy guys.
Yeah, I really have, and they've been super like appreciative and super cool with what I put out. So I've had good responses from what I put out. So
to be fair, Will, you know your shit. Like,
yeah, I mean, I take the time to.
I can see Alex smirking because he wants to make a comment. But in all fairness to you, like, you know your shit. So
thank you, man.
You know, and I think it's fairly easy to be see-through. Like when you're sat there spouting shit and you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The curtain falls very quickly. That's the problem. But when you know your stuff, and the thing is, it depends whether you call yourself educational as well. Like, I don't look at myself as being an educational YouTuber. All right, there is the influence, but I like to look at myself as more. I try and be a bit more entertaining than anything else. All right, educational in the sense of here's how I've built a 4x2x2 and things like that. But I do suffer a lot with like imposter syndrome. I find it difficult to do care guides because I don't want to get it wrong. Do you know what I mean? So it's a tough one. It's a fine line. Like you've got to be confident in what you do. Are we all getting put in under the blanket of educational? Potentially, because it's quite niche, and obviously a lot of the times people are looking up how to care for their reptiles. But I think similar to what Will has said, it does depend on the YouTuber. It really does. If someone's out there fronting and putting themselves as an educational page, then yes. Otherwise, I think it's down to the viewer to realise who's educational and who's entertaining.
Dude, I will say too, like anytime like 99% of people have a question, what do? They go on YouTube and look it up, how to care for X animals. So we also, again, back to another question, we kind of have that responsibility to make sure we're putting out good information.
Yeah, and even now, even if they type it into Google, 9 times out of 10, one of the first things that pops up is a YouTube video. So, yeah.
Thanks.
All right, Alex.
Yeah, I'm going to have to
never mind. All right,
kind of just I'm going to jump in on this. So, I mean, when it comes to like educational stuff, if it actually came like animal specific, me and my channel, I'm not the one for that because Riddler, I think you had kind of said it, that imposter syndrome. Me, I know everything about my animals, but I feel like there's always so much more that I can learn. So I feel like I would be shortchanging, the actual video itself. And then on the flip side, you get a guy like Will. I mean, he's a Rolodex of information when it comes to varanids. I mean, any question I ever have about a varanid, I just text Will and say, hey, man, what's up here? He's got a response within, 2 seconds of, whatever it is I need. So I think it's case by case on the specific, niche that reptile YouTuber's in. Like myself, I feel 100% confident putting out and answering questions, whether it's through comments on my videos on how to do builds or what should they do here, what kind of, foam should they use or dry lock or, paints and stuff like that. Or if I get messages on my Instagram account, I'll answer those all days because I feel very confident in doing that. But when it actually comes, like I said, to the animal, I'll direct them to who I respect and have them ask those questions to that person, individually and directly, because I don't want to be responsible for, giving the wrong information or not feeling I have 100% of the information. So,
Bro's dropping knowledge, and then that fogger just hits. It was like perfect timing. It was like, all right, Alex. Is a button.
No, that's a timer.
So yeah, I don't have a problem with like reptile YouTubers being seen as an educational source because I think people gather their education through a variety of ways, right? You have your firsthand experience, with the animals. I learn things all the time about different species just through observation, right? Direct interaction. You can read a book about it. You can talk to people. So I think there's a ton of ways to get your info. I don't think that just because a YouTuber is doing it, it's bad. By the way, I hadn't really I wasn't even aware that there was that perception that like YouTubers shouldn't be educating or that YouTubers are
Yeah,
like
dude.
gatekeepers. They make videos. So I had
Oh yeah,
never
there's
even.
definitely a negative connotation with being in Reptile YouTube. I think it more.
Science.
I think it's getting a lot better this day and age as the hobby evolves and the younger generation steps up. But it's a lot of the old heads, for sure. The guys that have been doing this 20, 30 years.
Yeah,
Dude,
I
it's
mean,
also
that's fine.
private sector in general, dude. They don't. The zoo people don't like us. Sorry, not to cut you off, but the zoo people don't like the private sector in general, especially the ones that make videos.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that sentiment still makes no sense. It's not like just because you have a camera and you decide to use it that you're less knowledgeable than, the old head that has these reptiles and never posted a video. You know what I mean? Like that correlation makes no sense. I will say though, like you guys have all said, you should be selective about who you choose to, like be that educational source. I think you should always look for different sources of information. Like if you're going to look up, something about a species, sure, watch this video, use it as a guide, but then, cross check the work, look at someone else's video, look up, an article online. Cause there's a lot of crappy, reptile YouTubers, all Tommy's reptiles that just will lead you astray. So yeah, just find the good ones.
Yo, that's a lie. Keep my boy Tommy out your mouth. Pause. Yeah, God, what a boring live stream. It's just me asking controversial questions and being like, yep. But yeah, I agree. I think we should be very selective and again being held to a higher standard when we bring out this educational content. I've gotten to the point where I only really want to make that educational care guide and things like that. I mainly do it for my customers, people that buy the variety of animals that I produce. I want them to make sure that they have a steady, reliable source of that information so they don't Google the first thing because, as you know, especially with these more common species, Google can get a little bit crazy. I remember I Googled like basking temp for bearded dragon and you got anywhere from 90 to 130. It was wild. Depends on which link you clicked. So I do want to make sure there's a reliable source, but at this point in time, I don't really stray too much further from that, especially for species that I haven't kept for very long. I believe I waited until the following year before I talked anything really about Leachianus or Leachianus care. I usually don't talk very much about new animals I get just because I don't know that much about them and I want to have that personal connection with them before I start trying to sprout some education. I also try to be very deliberate with my wording on this is how I keep, not this is how it should be kept. This is just my personal way, and I've had success with doing this.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it, to be fair. Very good way of doing it.
Always preface every care guide with that, dude, because if not, you'll get the smart asses like, oh, this is how you should do it. Like, bro, fuck you, dude. I said it's what I do and what works for me. It should work for you. Like
Exactly.
I love that, dude. And what I love about your care guides, dude, no matter what species it is, they're always up to date with no misinformation.
This man eats misinformation for breakfast, bro.
I get called out a few times. I believe my last one was the crested, and someone's like, well, actually, the new minimum is 18 by 36, not 18 by 24. Up to date my ass. And I'm like, fuck, roasted. Damn.
Well, you got to look at, too, like care guides, it really depends on where you live. You know, like if you live in Arizona or if you live up in Canada, the humidity, the climate, it's all going to be so much different. So, you know, if you're saying you need to run foggers or you need to run, you know, Mist King systems or what have you, well, that can be completely different depending on the season or location you're at. So you really have to put that into, you know, the factor of how you're actually keeping some of these animals.
Yeah, it's super difficult, and I'm sure we all get these questions on like what bulb I should use, how I should keep this, and it's like it's very dependent on how I'm even I moved 2 hours away, so same climate relatively, just the place that I am at now. Before I kept a lot differently in how my care, my misting, humidity, everything, all of those factors, that was a lot different than how it works down here. So the individual house really does have a lot of different you guys get what I'm saying. I'm trailing off at this point.
We catch what you're throwing down.
All right. Again, I'm sorry. I gotta pee again.
have the bladder of a squirrel, dude.
It's my fucking meds, dude. I apologize.
Ah,
God.
now I feel like a dick.
It's a medical condition, you ass.
Yeah, that's self-serve.
Okay, we'll
Sure.
just start this question because I'm sure it'll take me like 30 seconds to do it. I won't even wash my hands. I'll be that fast for you guys. Do you think that? I guess we're not naming people because so we'll just go with the generality. Do you think that shock reptile channels should be a thing of the past in today's reptile hobby? Let's start with Alex. Well, the Riddler's already shaking his head, so I think we'll know where he'll go. But we'll start with Alex anyway. Just go down the list. You guys know what to do. I'll be right back.
Yes, I don't think that should have ever been a thing, period. I think those channels are gross, disgusting. It's exploiting animals for clout slash revenue. I think anybody that does that is a piece of shit and can get fucked. Zero like justification for it whatsoever. Whether it be those people that like put animals together and like have them fight to the death, whether it be the Jay Brewers of the world that antagonize like a snake defending its babies, getting it to strike at you, because they'll do that. They know these animals. They know what's gonna make them strike. They do it on purpose to make them look bad, to get views. I'm not gonna say like the channels should be taken down, because I do believe in free speech and people being able to post whatever the fuck they want. I just think that we as a whole should just shun them and stop giving these people platforms and stop watching the content. Because even if you see something like on Instagram, like someone with like shitty keeping or whatever the fuck, almost every single time, even if I want to like send it to someone and be like, yo, like, did you see this? I won't do it, because just sharing that post is going to get it more traction, and more people are going to say that. So a lot of the time you just have to ignore it and, hope it goes away.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it's like what you just said. I'll touch on that point. There's people that I know who aren't into reptiles that know I'm into reptiles, and they will send me these videos of your Jay Brewers and things like that, and go, "Wow, this is crazy." And my instant reaction is, "Don't bother. Like this ain't it. Like this is so bad for the hobby." It's. I'm not having a go at them. Like they've seen something that they know interests me, and they're trying to share that interest. But I do try and educate where I can and say, "Look, these people, this ain't it. This." But it gets views. What gets more views? Someone telling you how to care for an animal, or someone who nearly gets bitten by an 18-foot snake? The shock factor's there. What's that?
Or a type-in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and he now prides himself on getting that on video. The first thing he said, telling us he did was that he caught that bitch on video, and he needs to really give his fucking head a wobble. I don't know if that's another UK saying, but he just, it does need to be, it needs to be ignored, but it can't, because it's in the name, shock factor. That's the problem.
Yeah. Brad?
So, like Alex, I believe in freedom of speech, right? We should be able to say whatever we want. Doesn't mean I agree with it. And that shock value stuff, I can't get into it. I mean, I'm an animal lover, and when I see, some of these, Pac-Man frog versus alligator stuff, that flips my stomach. That's just not cool, man. And unfortunately, people click on that, especially if they're not in the reptile game, and it gets all these views and they make a lot of money and it keeps trending. I know for myself, I mean, even I don't feed live, right? But I don't have animals that require that or will only eat live. But that would turn my stomach in itself, So all this shock value stuff, it's just, for me, there's no room for it, and I don't click on it just to avoid them getting views and hitting algorithms and all that kind of stuff and getting suggested to other people. I mean, I've even reported a few of them in the past. I think you all know the channels I'm talking about that just kind of keeps emerging out of the dark every time. They just put it underneath another email and have those animal versus animal videos inside of a small box and stuff. So and then like the bite videos and stuff, I think that gives the hobby a bad name. I think it gives the animals a bad name, because 99% of the animals aren't doing that. And I feel like that those people are just putting it out there to get the views. Their motives aren't in the right place, right?
Yeah.
It's to put a bad precedent or a bad vibe on the hobby itself for selfish reasons. And that selfish reason is probably just to monetize and have that shock value and make money in a disgusting way.
Yeah.
And it makes us look bad, dude. It makes us look bad to the people that are out here trying to find something to get us on, you know, like the legislations that are trying to be passed. It gives them ammo, basically, if we keep like, oh my gosh, look at this giant snake. If this was to bite me and it could wrap me up and I'm gonna free handle this venomous snake, or watch, I'm gonna let a monitor bite my it gives them ammo, dude. And that's like the opposite of what we want to do. Now, I think there's a difference between us saying, hey, animals are capable of this, so we need to respect them, and then, you know, showing, hey, every animal's doing this. There's a difference, and you gotta know how to show it. So
yeah, because there's also a different way of doing it. Like if you get bitten by a monitor and you show, look, this was my fault. I didn't do this. You know, I didn't. You know, my hands still smell of quail and this and that.
Yeah.
Be careful. Here's how to learn from it. That's one thing. It's another to go, right, I'm going to put my arm here, watch what damage it does to a stupid, because you just, at the end of the day, that could also affect the animal as well. It's going to affect the hobby, and it's just stupid. So, yeah, I think they're ridiculous. But it only appeals to those that don't understand it. And again, that's not their fault. People that don't understand the hobby go, wow, that's crazy, or wow, that's awful. But for those of us on the inside, in the hobby, we look at it and go, that's only a bad thing. So, yeah.
facts.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we called out anyone specifically during this, because I was temporarily away, but I've got no problem calling out people like prehistoric Jay. I don't know. I think it's prehistoric pets.
Fuck Jay Brewer.
For that asinine shit he does with the reticulated pythons. I've heard the argument a couple. It's kind of always sad to see where like people seem to do have like strong opinions and strong stances in philosophy, but as soon as it's their friends doing the opposite of what they're saying, there seems to be some cope with it. So I've heard the cope or the devil's advocate position about it is like, well, Jay does this crazy stuff and he gets tens of millions of views, but then he also does like the educational stuff, or he does the educational in the video, and that kind of like it gets the eyeballs, and then some eyeballs keep, and that's a betterment for the hobby. I can't imagine what fraction of a number of the 19, 20 million people some of his viral videos have blown up that stayed around to see the education versus the millions of people that just saw, wow, here's this dipshit handling this giant snake. Why does this guy have this giant animal that's obviously aggressive? He doesn't seem to know what he's doing or how to handle it.
Yeah. Plus his education sucks anyway.
Yep.
dude. No, I gotta say this. Someone sorry, I don't want to talk about you. Someone sent me pictures of Prehistoric Pets, the zoo, the enclosures, dude.
It's so
they had
gross.
three species of water monitor in one enclosure, a 4x2x2. The croc monitors were it was a nightmare, bro. Shit on the walls, red bulbs. It was like hell for animals, bro. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It was bad, dude.
You guys know he's getting his own TV show, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I heard something like that, yeah.
I haven't heard any updates on it. Yeah. I also heard there's supposed to be a Reptile King, but Chimp Queen just came out. So I don't know if we're still getting the Reptile King or what's going on with that, but any of that kind of stuff just isn't. I do not understand at this day and age why any keeper, well, I think in Jay's case it's all clout driven and ego driven as well. Either one of those two, take your pick. But
clout, ego, money.
Why any keeper would want to go on this kind of show for public television, because you know it always ends up the same. I listened to an interview with do you guys remember, this was a little bit ago, but I think we're all old enough. It was on Nat Geo or Discovery. It was Eaten Alive by an Anaconda. You guys remember that?
It sounds familiar.
Was it the lady in the jungle or something, or what?
It was a dude. I can't remember his name's passing me, but it was a whole documentary about like being eaten by an anaconda alive. So the guy would like put on this special suit and he would be eaten by an anaconda.
What?
You guys did not hear about this?
No, bro.
Oh, did you just make that up?
No, dude, this aired on Discovery or Nat Geo, one of those. But the whole thing was I listened, so because I saw that and I was like, this is bullshit. Why the fuck would anyone in this hobby want to do something like that? Brian ended up when one of his podcasts, he interviewed the guy, and he told us like how out of context it was taken out of, how it was supposed to be this, but it got evidently twisted into this. And he said like he didn't know what the title of this film or documentary was supposed to be until like this show aired, and he was doing an interview and he found out about it.
Did the snake survive?
Well, it didn't eat him like all the way. I mean, I don't know. I think it was a wild Paul
If
Rosaline.
Him, like what? They just pulled him out afterwards, and the snake was fine.
And they're constrictors, dude.
Again, this was like
that's what I was
Even a large snake, dude.
But yeah,
they're constrictors. They'd have to wrap him up and then feel the heartbeat stop for him to go then into swallowing.
Yeah, but if he's wearing a suit though, they probably can't feel the heartbeat through whatever fucking special.
That's
suit.
true. Yeah, that is.
I mean, we feed frozen thawed all the time.
Yeah.
They got no heartbeat.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that wraps up that section. I can't think of anything else to add. I don't think shock value has any place in the hobby anymore. I think we've evolved a lot since the 2006 when YouTube was first coming out era, and the bite videos were all cool and stuff. I think just times change, and you either need to progress with those times or you should get left behind. Especially as our hobby faces more and more attacks from legislation, PETA, HSUS, just people trying to restrict what we can and can't keep in the private sector. We need to keep our wits about us and posting videos like the live feedings, the verses, and just the asinine stuff that Jay posts is only going to hurt us in the end.
Yeah. Also, fuck PETA. They kill people's pets.
Exactly. I do not. That's why I fucking hate the Tiger King guy. I can't remember his name, but he did the Tiger King and the Chimp Queen. He's, oh man.
Yeah.
I might change my philosophy a lot on this stuff, but I don't think I'll ever change my stance on fucking PETA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck that.
Okay, so I think we just have a couple more questions, and then if everyone has time, we can start taking some questions from chat at the end. So this one I want to preference because I feel like the easy answer, it's too easy just to say with our government. So do you think generally there should be regulations on certain exotic species of animals? I guess we'll keep with reptiles as well, reptile channels. Not that do you think our government should have those regulations and how our government is handling it, but do you think regulations in general should be put in place for some of these more exotic, quote-unquote, more dangerous species of reptiles?
I think it could be a good practice for some of the larger constrictors and larger monitors. I don't think those should be in the hands of everyone. Now, I think that if you can properly care for something, no matter the animal, you should be able to keep it.
Oh my god. Jesus fucking Christ, man.
You think it better?
The problem is he's making really good points, and then he's just...
I know, he's like about to spit some facts, and he's like, and then...
Bro, it's like his Wi-Fi doesn't want to be great, man.
Go on, start again. Go on, Will. Go on.
My bad.
Yeah,
I think if you can keep a certain animal and do it right, if you can keep a blue whale correctly, you should be able to do it. If you can keep an elephant, you should be able to keep it.
A fucking
But if
wild
you-
statement, a blue whale.
If you can't, but if you can't keep it, you shouldn't be able to keep it. So I don't believe in people saying blanket ban for everything, but I do think there should be entry points into the giant constrictors, to the giant monitors, because not everyone should have access. So that's where I stand with it. Before I cut out, I won't elaborate. They've heard my points, so I'm sure they'll elaborate more on kind of what I mean by that. But I don't want to.
I'm sorry you're having it. I know we're messing with Will a lot, but I do feel
no, it's too.
I've
It's
been
cool.
in the
It's
same
cool.
exact situation that you've been in on other
Yeah.
podcasts, and it's such a shitty, like, frustrating.
It's
feeling.
weird, dude. It's weird.
So
I don't know what the deal is. It's really weird.
All right, what do you got for us, Riddler?
It's one of those, because where do you draw the line? The problem is once places start getting too much power, you start getting like the white lists and the black lists, and those who, similar to what we were saying, those who can keep properly are then told that they're not allowed to keep at all. So this is the concern. Who do you stop and who do you allow to carry on? Should there be laws and legislations and things like that on bringing the animals in the first place, potentially making them harder to get? it might increase the price, and those that want to keep them, this is like it almost comes back to what we were saying earlier. The higher the price, the less likely someone's going to impulse buy and keep it properly. It is quite a tough topic, this one, because it's a grey area. There's a lot of grey areas. It can potentially be done correctly, but the problem is the wrong person gets too much power, and we aren't allowed to keep reptiles anymore.
Yeah, it's why specifically, because I feel like we're all just going to agree that regulations at this point in time, just by our, well, UK government's obviously going to be different than American government, but what's happening in our country, the good old US of A, it's just a negative impact and blanket bans, which is why I wanted to more go into like the ideology of regulations instead of how those regulations should be implemented in our own government.
The ideology is good. The practice is not.
Exactly.
Basically, I think that's the be all and end all. The short of it is the ideology is good. The practice is awful. So if it's going to be done, it should be done properly. And again, obviously, we are all in. Well, I'm in different countries to you guys, and there's plenty of others around the world with different laws, rules, regulations. The ideas are good. It's tough to see somewhere where it works perfectly, if there is anywhere.
Well, it's the government, so.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Alex.
Yeah, so I'm with Riddler. I think the concept is fine. I think the practice is pretty bad because, like, with almost any kind of law or protocol that's put into place, it can start off one way and then, become something else. But I know you said not to get too much into like the details of how it's actually applied. So I'm fine with it. I do think I wish that it wouldn't be that way though. The reason I'm fine with it is because unfortunately there's a lot of fucking morons in the world that cannot regulate themselves, are irresponsible or reckless or a danger to others. And that's kind of the issue is if you get so and so animal and the risk is all you, then no regulation needed. But if it can potentially affect other people, then it should be regulated. I just think in general, this isn't even just for reptiles. I think, you know, regulations in general, I think it's an indictment of society. The fact that we have to put these regulations in place because not everyone is smart enough to not, do something super stupid. So I think it's sad that that has to be the way. Like, I don't know, for example, like the five of us here, right? If the entire population was like similar to the five of us, I'd be saying no regulation needed, right? None of us is going to get a venomous snake that we can't keep properly, that we can't, secure. Even if we don't know how to do it, we wouldn't do it. None of us is going to get, a retic that we can't adequately house, right? So in that case, I'm like, dude, regulations not needed. The government can fuck off. Like, what do they know about reptiles? But the fact that there's so many people that just are not smart enough or just lack the common sense, kind of ruins it for everyone. And honestly, it's kind of embarrassing that we have to be babied like that. But that's just the kind of the state of affairs at the moment.
All right, Brad, did you go? I think we started with Will, so we'll end it with Brad.
Yeah, no, and I'll keep my answer kind of short because I agree with what you all have said. The concept is great. The rollout would be way too hard to manage and control. So I feel like whatever the regulation would be, it would just be a huge blanket statement, which would impact the hobby for responsible keepers in a negative way. So here in Illinois, right? Like I can't own a beaded lizard unless I go through hours of training and get certifications, all that kind of stuff. And I believe I'd be responsible with having a beaded lizard, but I don't have one because of that. With that being said, if I moved a state over, I'd be able to have one, right? And nothing would change individually with how I'd be keeping it. The only change is the actual policy or the state legislation that is laid down. Do I think it could benefit the hobby in some areas? I mean, I hope a kid wouldn't just go to a store and pick up a venomous snake and say, cool, this is going to be great, and keep them in a Tupperware bin. I would hope they'd be doing research at that point. But, for myself and a lot of people that are probably even in the chat, I feel that they would be able to keep some of these animals just as well as the next person that had the willingness to do the best that they can. Unfortunately, we live in a world where somebody may get an animal just because it's cool and it's venomous, and that's an accident waiting to happen. Which now you have taxpayer dollars that are get involved. That there's ambulance rides and anti venom and all this kind of stuff coming out of that. But yeah, it's a weird question. I don't think there's a good answer for it, at least with inside myself, because I'm all on the side of freedom of choice. This is our right, but I also think we have to,
as Americans,
be
Riddler.
smart in the sense. Yeah. But yeah, so that's my answer with all that.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. For a while, I always thought I was very anti-regulation and was on the feeling more of what Will was saying. If you have the means to take care of it, you should get whatever the fuck you want. If I want an elephant and I live on 20 acres of property and can do this and that, why can't I get an elephant? But I think as time goes on, as some other people are pointing out, I do think regulations do stand point because, as Alex said, people don't think like us, and there are people that are ego-driven. They want the giant snake to feed it to hamsters, the monitor lizard that slams the live rats because it's cool and it's edgy. And I think regulations definitely can weed some of those people out, especially when we get to these more more exotic stuff, more dangerous stuff. There's going to be a big difference between like an Ackie monitor and a full-grown croc or a full-grown Nile that we were saying that can definitely do some damage to you. I mean, to this day, I got off real lucky. I still can't feel the tip of my finger years later after my Argus bite. And I think there's definitely some, especially with venomous, maybe since that's kind of been the eyeball for the longest with our government. I do like the appointed set amount of hours one needs with as an apprentice before they can own some of these more exotic animals. Because you can do as much research as you want on the internet, but there's nothing like hands-on experience. I can watch as many Argus monitor videos as I want. There's a big difference between reading books and watching it versus when a full-grown Argus male comes rushing at you as soon as you open the crate. It's a different experience, man.
I actually disagree with you.
What do you got for me?
I knew you would.
Finally, we got some confrontation.
Yeah,
Dakota, me and Alex have been through this before. I was literally just about to. The funny thing is, Alex, sorry, before I let you carry on, I was just about to put Alex in a positive light for something he said on True Tales before, which was the problem with regulations is you put people in power with these regulations that don't know what we do or how. So you need someone with the experience that's in the reptile hobby. However, what he's about to get into is something that got heavy.
I'm not even. I hope we're talking about the same thing. Damn, now I feel like there's so much pressure to say whatever it is that you think I'm gonna say.
Gary, get the band hammer ready.
Different. Let's say it after. What I would disagree with, Dakota, I do not agree with the hours, bro. I do not agree with it. You know how Will was saying earlier, you were saying earlier, like, oh, if I want to have, an elephant and I have the acres, I should be able to do it. Like, why do I need, some regulation that says I can't do it? I made this argument on that episode because I genuinely feel like I could be fine raising a Cayman, like a five. If you get it as a baby, dude.
Hang on, Alex.
Yes.
Do you think you could take a bear in a fist fight?
Yes, he does. He does. He does.
Are you one of those people?
I've never said that. But I mean, I'd win if you put me in a cage with a bear 10 times. It'll kill me 9 times. I'm getting one.
No, you're not. No, you're not. 10 out of 10. You're done. You're done.
But no, the reason I don't agree with the hours is people learn at different rates. There are some people that are really quick learners. There are slow learners. Like, I do think that there should be a regulation. I don't think it should be hourly based. I think it should be competency based. Have, these written exams. Have these people come and demonstrate to you proper techniques. Have them, do an oral exam, pause, like all these different things. Like, just test them on their knowledge. Again, like you said, with the time, you get the experience. With the experience, you get the knowledge. but if you can get it just quicker, like I don't think there's any need for it, dude. I'll give you guys an example. I've always been super good in school. I've had classmates that need to study 10 hours for a final exam. I read the book half an hour before the exam starts. We get the same grade, or I do better than them. So it wouldn't make sense that we would both, like, we're both forced to like study the same amount when some people can just get it um, faster than others. Some people are more natural. I'm not saying I'm this person for like regulated animals. I just, in general, I think anything that's time based, um, I don't agree with it. Like, I don't think that should be a barrier if you already have all the knowledge, right? What if you grew up with, reptile people, and you've been your whole life around that shit? You probably know more than the person that just finished their 1,000 hours. But because you don't have a certificate that says, hey, 1,000 hours, you're not good enough to like keep the animal. I think it should be competency based. I don't think it should be hourly based.
Yeah, I agree with the competency base. That's definitely the best measure, dude. Time doesn't really mean anything.
How
It
would
should
we?
be competency.
Oh, wait, I want to ask that last. So I'll concede that what we do have as far as the government right now, the 1,000 hours is a little ridiculous. But I think I have to stand the ground of I think the hands-on experience is going to be the most beneficial.
No,
And while
definitely.
while 1,000 hours is definitely it's an insane amount of time. I don't know who the fuck chose 1,000. That's crazy. And especially I think for some states it's 1,000 per species of venomous. So just because you have 1,000 with rattles, you can't get into cobras, or I think they go by the Latin species, but whatever. But I think there could be some time base for some curriculum made. Again, we're talking. I don't really want to get into like what the government's doing, but how we could implement some regulation in a perfect scenario, I guess. And I think to the point of the baby caiman, I think there's a big difference between taking care of a baby caiman to when it grows up. And I think getting that hands-on experience of seeing how that animal reacts as an adult is nothing but beneficial and could waive some others from getting into the species altogether. But
No, I agree with you. I was just saying that's kind of what made me like start this argument. But even with that though, it's not like your baby caiman is suddenly gonna be an adult overnight, right? Like, oh, you've been used to this small thing and now it's a big one you don't know what to deal with. It's a gradual thing. Dude. Crocodilians grow so slowly. Like you wouldn't even like by the time it's an adult, you've already had years working with that specific animal. You already, like a caiman isn't something you can just ignore, right? Like you already know that animal pretty well. I mean, I think anyone that's, willing to get a caiman, I think they would definitely, be wise to be around them first, really learn them, make sure that's something that they want to do.
It's not
But
true.
I think once they do that, they should have, not that they should have, but I think at that point, make the decision.
see, but yeah, that's the problem. We can go back to like the 90s where like gas stations were selling alligators for 20 bucks a pop. And I guess this brings up a couple of the questions that we've had, but I, I think my biggest question is how would we regulate a confidence based um how would you regulate confidence based, because that seems to be the thing, less hour based and more about the keeper's confidence. How do you put that into I'm spacing on the word. You guys know what I'm saying?
I know what you're
Yeah,
saying.
Okay.
like something you can measure and test.
Yeah, like a measurable.
Well, I mean, okay, so obviously I've never done, these hours for any of this stuff, but let's say the whole point of these venomous hours are because you need to A, know how to properly clean the cages, B, know all the like the venom it has, how it can affect you, know about the anti-venom, know how to properly handle it with hooks, know how to, double door it, lock it, right? If whatever the 1,000 hours are supposed to like be the stuff that you're learning, then at the end, and I'm not saying this is like one exam or whatever. This could be a process that takes a few weeks. I think you should be tested on those things. So
Almost
hey,
a demonstration
yeah,
standpoint.
yeah, exactly. Because I mean, how many people are realistically going to be doing this? Like, you can definitely. I think the resources are there where the people that are really serious about it can do it. And if anything, bro, if you don't want like people that are just bullshitters trying to do it, dude, charge $500 to take the exam. And if
Alex,
you have to pay again to try it, charge $1,000. Fuck, dude, who cares? I would rather pay $1,000 to prove that I can do it,
Instead of
than
spend
to
1,000 hours.
accrue 1,000 hours.
Alex, I've got a question for you with regards to this, right? So you're obviously not a big fan of flying, yeah? Would
Yeah.
you rather be flown in a plane by a pilot who has had a minimum of 1,000 hours of training time along with an instructor, or someone who's turned up, gone, I know what I'm doing, here's how I've landed before, here's a quick takeoff I've done. Yeah, you seem all right. Who would you rather fly that plane?
Well, obviously the first one, but the thing is, that's not like, if they are both tested the same exact way, right? Like at the end, let's say one got the 1,000 hours, one did 100. If in the end they're both tested and it's like it's a valid exam, like obviously we'd have to like really crack down, make these exams are have a high validity. Um, Dude, if the guy, I'd rather have the guy with 100, because you know what?
But say that.
He got the same grade with less practice.
Okay, they both passed the same written test at the end. The guy with 100 hours only flew during the summer. The guy with 1,000 hours flew through rain, winds, snow, landed on ice. Experience.
The thing is,
Experience.
if you're gonna have like that kind of some exam and protocol, that would be one of the elements on it. Okay, how do you fly this plane safely during the winter, during this time? Show me doing it in these conditions. So I guess the way you'd relate it to the snakes is, show me handling this snake, show me doing this with this one. Like, to pass the exam, like, you should be able to do all the seasons. You know what I mean? Like, any example that you're bringing up that the guy with experience has, anything that the guy with experience has that maybe the other guy wouldn't, I think should be a standard for the exam. You know what I mean? Like, I think if the guy doesn't have the hours, one knows how to fly in this weather, the other one doesn't, then the one that's never flown in that weather shouldn't have passed the exam.
Yeah, but you're just looking at passing the test, though. That's the problem.
I think I understand what he's saying, and I agree with it. With the time, you get different scenarios that you weren't necessarily going to get with the short amount that this demonstration, hypothetical will land. So, I mean, we can be handling venomous when they have a higher feed response one day. There's going to be a point in these hours where it's in shed, it's in full shed, it's being cranky that day, this and that you aren't necessarily going to see with the guy that's just doing the confidence-based test.
I agree with that 100%. The thing is, the guy that passes the competency test, it's not like he has 0 hours. Like,
Bro,
if he's
Alex bringing his dog to try to prove his point more is a low blow.
Oh, here we go.
Such a good boy. The thing is, though, like, with like the examples that you're saying, the shed, one of them has, more of a feeding response. Dude, if you're good enough to pass the same exam that the guy with 1,000 hours has, you have a decent amount of experience as well. You've probably seen all those scenarios. You probably maybe haven't seen it 100 times over. Maybe you've seen it 10 times over.
Hang on 1 second. I'm sorry. Hang on. Brad, have you been standing for 2.5 hours?
No, hell no, man. I'm sitting in a chair.
I saw it. I'm like, no, he's swiveling. But then you kind of moved us. So I was like, wait a minute, is this motherfucker standing?
Chair, man.
I'm sorry. I saw it on the chat, and then that was like the only thing on my mind. I apologize. Keep going, Alex. Keep going.
I think I made my point. May not be a good point, but I made it.
Oh no, it was a shit point, but you've made it.
Nice.
Fuck you, Riddler. You dropped an isopod video today, and my ass was in the live chat supporting you. Fuck your isopods, bro. I'm never watching another one of your videos again.
Appreciate you, bro.
Just a healthy debate between gentlemen. I'm glad we can keep it civil. Yeah, that's a tough one. I think Alex does raise some points about the confidence thing, and I do think 1,000 hours is. I think we just need. I think the real issue is the reptile hobby, although it is definitely growing. I think that's going to make it to like our second to last question that we'll get into. But at the end of the day, when we compare it to like the world's population, we are a very niche thing, and the government has a lot of problems. And I think trying to nail down and get all the gears in place for a perfect system for this niche of a thing just isn't top on the priority list, which comes with a big issue. So I think if you go around table to the Board of Congress and you're like, what do you guys think? 1,000 hours? Yeah, that's a lot. Let's do that. I think that's where that comes from. I think in a perfect world, the time I still believe is relevant, but I think a lot more studying and figuring out what really is how much time do we really need, right? Like what curriculum do we really need? Now with the fucking cat, I swear to God.
My animals love me, man.
I just have the reptiles down here, so I can't do it. All right, this one I actually don't have written down, but I thought of it right before we went. And then this is our second to last question. I'm trying to think of how to like paraphrase this. So obviously our hobby has grown exponentially through the rise of social media and how easy it is to get into this hobby, how accessible reptiles are, how accessible these communities have become, whether good or bad. It's a thing. Our hobby has grown immensely. And I would say the vast majority of us in the hobby are against regulation, legislation, laws being passed down due to the stuff that I guess we didn't really brush up because I didn't really want to because, well, the government's shit at writing bills and laws for reptile keepers, and it's mostly for these anti, PETA, HSUS, and lobbying, but I don't want to get too governmental on it. The vast majority of reptile keepers seem to have the state that we can self-police ourselves, but as we have gotten so big, do you think as this hobby we can still self-police? Let's start with Brad.
I mean, I don't know how that would even be possible if we were to self-police. What would that look like, right? Would that look like us going to our local elected officials and saying this is how we want the laws to be? Would it look like breeders saying, no, we're not going to sell, an Asian water monitor to you unless you prove, you have an adequate size enclosure? Yeah, I think that'd be kind of a hard one for us as, the hobby to self-police. Yeah, I'd like to hear what your guys' thoughts are on that one.
All right, let's hear it, Alex. This is a curveball. No one got prepped for this one. I didn't have this on the questions, but I thought it was an interesting one to throw in.
To be fair, I reviewed the questions you sent like 1 minute before joining, but no, I do not have faith in us being able to self-police because I don't have faith in humanity for the most part. There's always going to be a few people that kind of ruin it for everyone. I think unless we have like a way to actually get rid of them, we're not going to be able to. As much as I'd love to say that we can and we will, it's just I don't have a lot of faith, dude. I think most reptile keepers are good. I just also think there's a good amount of trash.
Yeah, I mean the problem is when you say self-policing, obviously people have, as we've already seen on here, varying different opinions. So whose opinion do you go by? Do you go by the one that shouts the loudest or the one with the most experience? This is the problem. But then at the same time, do we get some government elected official to blanket ban everything? It is a really, really tough one. And similar to what Alex has said, it's hard to trust people. Like, it sounds like a blanket statement, but it's difficult because all it takes is one idiot to ruin it for everyone else, and that's the problem. There's got to be a fine line between them.
Yeah, shout out to Jeffrey.
Yeah, it comes down to the individual. Like, you can have all the good you want in the community, but there's always going to be those people that are just too full of themselves that say, I don't care what the right way is. I don't care what anyone thinks. I want a king cobra. I want a crocodile, and I'm going to keep it like shit. And it's because I can. And that's where the problem lies, I think, because then that gets reflected back onto us. And
every time. It's like he's spitting fire.
Anything we can do about those people.
Yeah, you're back.
All right, you're back.
Where did it cut off?
I don't know.
I think it cut off at the very end. I think you're just saying there's nothing we can do with those kinds of
people. There's really nothing we can do with those people.
Here, I don't know.
There's really nothing we can do with those people in terms of self-policing, because then we're probably crossing into like breaking people's rights and shit. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna pull what do you call it? I'm gonna steal Riddler's idea.
Oh.
I think we should just put all those people in an island and then just nuke it.
We should send them to the UK.
I think that's treading on some rights, but hey, I'm for it. Let's break the law.
Yeah,
Oh, I'll tell you
send
what
them
we'll
to
do.
the UK. Let them pay for what they've done.
Let's do Alex's idea. Let's let everyone have access to everything, and those that die can't keep them anymore, and those that survive can keep them for as long as they want.
Not a bad strategy.
I am fine with that, dude. I think
Dude,
the
no
But it
world
doesn't
is
just affect that
that was the
person.
and I think
ideology I
that
had
those
up until
that-
recently. Was like, if you die, you die.
It doesn't just affect that person though. If it did just affect that person,
Exactly.
but it
Yeah.
affects others too.
Yeah, so that's when
that's the only
a
problem.
really big part of that. Actually, I don't know if you guys saw the Tiger King people made one for chimpanzees now, and it kind of went up into like how we had a lot of chimps in movies and kind of where they go. Spoiler alert: they go to awful conditions, very sad. And I was one of those people who was like, dude, I want a chimp. That's my dream animal. After watching that documentary, I'm like, damn, homie, maybe I don't want a fucking chimp.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, like, yeah, what Alex is saying, like, if a chimp kills me, and that's it. But that's not just it, because you still have a chimpanzee in a house with a carcass. There was one instance where some regulation wasn't hit, and the chimpanzee got out and immediately ran downstairs and just started beating the living shit out of this woman's daughter. She had this chimp for like 30 years or something. She ends up being in the basement, barricading the door from this fucking thing. She has to call the police. People come in with AR-15s. They have to take the animal down. That's taxpayer resources. Those are policemen that could potentially be in harm's way because of your decision to keep this animal that you did not have the proper way to take care of.
Yeah.
But kind of getting back on the point of self-policing. Yeah, I don't know how we can self-police when we're this big. I definitely feel like self-policing was a lot easier when it was just word of mouth. When Reptile ads were like sent by envelope instead of online. I mean, it's not even just forums now. We have chat boards, Facebook groups, Morph Market. There's now like Show Me Reptile Shop. There's like 7 apps you can buy reptiles with. There's a lot of accessibility, and if we can't even self-police the worst of the worst, Slither comes to my mind is like top of the list. Like, if we as a community can't come together and see what Slither has done and not shut that down by ourselves, how do we expect to self-police the entire community? Like, there are still people inside this sector, while being low-key and not really publicly doing it, they're still selling the Slither, they're still buying Slither snakes, and it just kind of just goes to show that when it comes to, because that seems to me like we can self-police ourselves. I don't think we can self-police ourselves when we've become this big of an entity. Too small to raise a voice to the government, yet too large to self-police is not a great place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, we gotta vote with our wallets, man. Like, if people would have taken the Slither shit seriously and just said, okay, this I do not like, I do not stand behind that, I do not want my hard-earned money going to these people, even if they have a cool snake. Dude, support people that are doing it right, man. I think that's going to be huge for self-policing. Is where's the money being spent?
Continue.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I think.
Oh,
that's
okay.
it.
I definitely do. I think we can start with changing the mindset of how buying reptile. I've always found it very strange how easy it is to buy a reptile and how little. Because if you look at, so I used to, when I got like my first German Shepherd when I was a kid, there was so much stuff you had to do. We had to go to the kennel, pick one out. There was a lot of paperwork to sign, this and that. And that's an animal that lives for 8 to 12 years. I believe she lived like 12, 13, somewhere around that. I mean, we're selling reptiles that live 20, 50. Think about how many sulcata tortoises are out here that are living 100 plus years, and just how accessible they are. I find that really strange, and I'm a total advocate for paying with your wallet. When I'm starting to get into these like more rares and a more obscure species, I want to shine them a light onto my channel and show there's more shit than corns, ball pythons, beardeds. There's a lot of shit in this hobby that even I didn't know about till like last week, and I think it comes with, don't just go with the first thing you see. You know, the cheapest, whatever the cheapest thing, whatever the first page is on Morph Market. Research the breeder. I've got specific people in mind. Justin for my forest dragons, Armin for my annuls, because those are the guys I like, those are the guys I've talked to, and that's where I want my money to go to.
Yeah.
Facts.
Big facts. All right. I've had my pet tortoise almost. That's a lot of time for a pet tortoise. Sorry, my ADHD's kicking. All right, last question before we move it on to chat. I thought this was a good closer for this. Where do you see the hobby evolving in the future? Let's start with Alex.
So in the future, I mean, how far are we talking?
Wherever you want it to be.
All right, whatever. Yeah, so just somewhere in the future. I actually, I know we've talked a lot of shit and complained about some of the creators in the hobby. I actually do think the hobby, the future is bright for the hobby. I think we're headed in the right direction. I think the kind of like the tides have turned a bit. That old school kind of way of keeping your reptiles is more and more like being frowned upon. Like those people that keep their reptiles without any lighting. We already talked about the racks, the small enclosures. I think more people are doing the larger enclosures, the more naturalistic, bioactive enclosures. I think so I like that aspect of it. I think in general care is improving, which I mean you'd hope so, right? But I think in general care is improving. The way we treat our animals is improving. I think the next kind of thing that would really like just take everything to the next level would be less breeding. Less breeding would be huge. For higher, like you guys were saying, supply and demand, higher entry point. And again, it sounds kind of fucked up. Like, yeah, I want less people to afford these animals. At the end of the day, like I said, it's not a right, it's not a need. Like, it's if you really care about the animals, you're willing to save up for them. But I think aside from less people getting animals that they probably shouldn't, just the amount of animals that are being produced would go down, which is a whole, like we always talk about how animals are kept like the hobby. A lot of times when I think that, I think of keepers that just have their own pets. But dude, think about how many animals are being kept by breeders, right? And think about how most breeders cut so many corners. So if there's less breeding, I think that's also a good thing. I don't see how that one would go down unless the popularity of the hobby goes down. I don't know. I think we should be heading towards less animals, larger enclosures, and I think we're on the way there. But I think there's more to be done.
I just want to challenge one thing you said. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily think breeding is the problem. I think the issue is breeding already saturated species. I would love to see more
Yeah.
breeders.
That's what I meant.
Exact. Okay. Cool. I don't think breeding is a problem. Well, breeding is a problem because everyone wants to do the same fucking thing. But I think like reptile expos in general would be so much fucking cooler if we had small dudes that had like croc geckos, fish scale geckos, shit like that. But instead it's like balls, no pause. That's literally what shows are. It's fucking ridiculous. All right, sorry. That was a little intermission. What do you got for us, Riddler?
Yeah, I agree with Alex in the sense of it looks as though we're going smaller species, bigger enclosures, more naturalistic. I think social media does have something to play in that happening, which is a positive. Like for all its flaws, social media has had positives because you will find people getting called out for their shit. So if there are people that aren't scared to go, right, that enclosure sucks, they either change or they stop showing it. Obviously, hopefully they change, but there does seem to be a tide turning where the old guard are being phased out. This is how I've done it for 30 years. I've never had a problem. My animals have always bred. It's now, right, well, that's how it has been done, but here's how it can be done better. So I think smaller animals, bigger enclosures, for the most part, because obviously some of us, like, for example, I know, Will, you're in the middle of building some stuff. Brad, look at the enclosures behind you, the enclosure behind me. Like we still want the big enclosures with big animals. Do you know what I mean? And Alex, I'm sure that you're going to want to do similar in the future as well. Like your kin enclosure is a good size. But I think for the most part, with the general hobbyists, I think it's going to be smaller animals, bigger enclosures, more naturalistic, and hopefully just better care. Like more money instead of buying an animal and then more money going on another animal. It's going to be buying an animal and more money going on the enclosure. So I'm going to put the overhead heat, I'm going to put the UVB, I'm going to put the LED. I've seen some nice plants I want to put in there. So perfecting what we've already got, as opposed to just buying the next animal. So I'm hoping, and I think that's where it's going to go.
I think a lot of us need to take a note from fish keeping. I've seen this rhetoric told a bunch of times, but fish keepers are exactly what you're describing, is beautiful enclosures, thousands of dollars went to the aquarium first, $20 fish goes in it. And I think we need that kind of ideology into reptiles. I think that's going to save us a lot of time down the road with this legislation, because you're not seeing reptiles be put in the minimum standard. You're seeing them be put in bioactive planted vivariums that just look out. I mean, look at the enclosure. Like, who's going to have a problem with the way that Riddler's keeping his, or Brad is keeping his? They're not. They're going to say, oh, this is a guy. This looks like this is zoo level stuff. And I think that's kind of what it's going to take for us to really switch the tides over. But at the end of the day, it just takes one person to post. Social media, I feel like we should have a part 2, because social media, could really get into the pros and cons of that. And one of the cons is it just takes one fucking guy in a rack system for PETA HSUS to grab that and say, all reptile people do this.
Or one guy getting bit by a taipan.
One guy bit by a taipan. One stupid fuck with a zebra cobra in North Carolina. That's all it takes.
Or one idiot letting like a fucking monitor out loose, and then people get a picture of it, and it's like, oh, everyone's letting their monitors. Fucking miss me with that bullshit, bro.
Bro, I saw a caiman lizard in a Florida pond be posted. I'm like, there's no
I saw that
fucking way.
shit.
There's no, like, bro, bring it to me.
I hope they start breeding.
Every time. It's like fucking clockwork.
What? Man, that sucks.
I'm sorry, man. Hopefully we'll have better luck next time.
Dude, I really don't know what the issue is. I've never had.
All right, let's see what you got, Will. Let's see if we can get you before it lags again.
Yeah, man. I was gonna kind of say the same thing, but honestly, I just want to say we need to stop the sensationalism on social media. I think that's gonna be our Achilles heel. We're going in the right direction, but I think this sensationalism is gonna give these people something to hit us on, and try and make shit harder for us. So we have to stop that. But I think for the most part, we're going in the right direction with our enclosures and stuff. So did it not work?
No, it worked.
Yeah,
we
we
heard
heard
you.
You good? Okay.
Perfect.
No, perfect. Great answer. Love it. All right, Brad.
Yeah, so I think it's important to kind of see where the hobby's going, is where has it been, right? And I can go back, I'm not going to, a little bit about my age. I started keeping around, 5 years old. So 35 years ago, I literally had a fish bowl, and the pet store was like, hey, yeah, you could put a newt, a crab, and a fire-bellied toad in there, and it'll be fine, right? And that was like the standard for keeping. Fast forward, 35 years, it has gotten a lot better since then. And I know even for myself, when I built my first dart frog bioactive naturalistic enclosure about 15 years ago, I really, maybe 2 or 3 other people I had seen just on Facebook or even YouTube at that time that were doing something like that. In today's world, especially in the last, 3 to 5 years, it has skyrocketed to where I'd say there's more people keeping naturalistic, bioactive than there are that are not, right? That are actually in the hobby and wanting to do the best that they can by their animals. So if it keeps going in that direction, I think the sky's the limit on possibilities and where it can go. Dakota, I think you brought up a perfect example of, the differential between fish keeping and reptile keeping. I'd say even once again, about 5 years ago, it was like this. Man, that reptile game is kicking up. And I think it's a big contribute to the enclosures and what people are putting into, the husbandry rather than the animal. I think a lot of the conception in the past was, oh, I'm going to spend, even if it was $1,000 on a veranid, right? $1,000 on this veranid, and I'm going to put it in an 8x4x12, but I'm going to have a shelf 3 feet off the ground, and that's it, right? Yeah. Now in today's world, you can buy that $1,000 veranid and spend 6, 7, 8 times as much on their enclosure. And I really hope that's where the hobby goes, is we appreciate the animal. Yes, it's going to have a price tag, but spend more on the actual where it's going to be living for the duration of its life. And sometimes that's 3 enclosures. Like when I get veranids, I have a small enclosure of grow out. The Mike's Monitor socializing caging system works great. If you all want to check it out, if you want to get a nice socialized monitor, try that. And then I'll get, a medium-sized enclosure at times, and then I'll have their forever home. So that's 3 enclosures just for one animal, and really trying to, like I said, offer more than what that animal needs, right? The basics is just the basics. I've spent time in jail, and I had a cot and, a ham sandwich and, go to the yard, right? That's not living. And if we're treating our animals like that, we're doing them an injustice. And I really see people catching on to that and really throwing all that they can at this animal. And I think what that does for the keeper is it makes them appreciate what they're doing that much more. You can take pride in what you're doing. You can take pride in how you're treating your animal, and see it for what it is. We have the luxury or the honor to be able to care for these things for their whole life. So offer them the best care possible, and that's where I really see the hobby going. And I think that's also contributed to, honestly, part of the YouTube platform getting more and more saturated with content creators, because there's more information coming out, there's more opportunities, or more things for people to be able to see and say, hey, I want to do that for my animal too. It's no longer just thinking about the possibilities. You actually have references to where you can build off of. So yeah, I see it going nowhere but up.
I dig it. I think we definitely need to change the mindset and how we're thinking about these, because what you're saying, I think the price tag was up to like $7,000 for the Asian water monitor, right? At the end of the day, this is a species that's going to live 20 plus years, far outweighing how long a standard dog would live, right? Yet people have no problem dropping the $3,500 on a purebred whatever. So I think it's just changing the mindset on how sellers are selling, and just, I guess, not thinking of it as an actual living being and an animal, not necessarily just a reptile, just a gecko. Um, I do think there's a fair line to go about anthropomorphizing an animal versus not seeing it as just a dumb, emotionless thing, right? Like, we can go too far in one direction versus too far in the other. You can put a ball python with newspaper and a water bowl in a rack system because it's a dumb animal, or you could make a dollhouse because you think it's cute and you think the reptile will think it's cute. There's extremes to either side, and I think it's just bringing that. But where? Oh, now it's my turn for the lights to go off. I only have like certain ones on timers. These I do manually. I'm still not rich enough to afford all the timers, or too lazy. I don't know which one it is. I think I agree. I think the evolution of reptiles, or the evolution of the hobby, is going to gear more towards bioactive. I think as we become more and more saturated, maybe not even necessarily for what's best for the animal that people have in mind, but how they're going to get an edge over others. We can look at like the cattle industry, right? Like, which beef are you going to buy? The random Walmart beef or the farm raised, grass fed, blah blah blah? It's your edge. It's the same thing with this. I keep my animals in naturalistic bioactive enclosures. They have great lives. My breeders aren't subjected into rack systems. This is why you should buy from me versus this other random guy where you don't even know how his animals are being kept because he's too afraid to post them on Instagram these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think we're going in the right place. I hate to say it, but I don't believe the reptile industry is going to be in a state where we won't be able to keep anything. There's a lot of that like mass hysteria of like, it's the anacondas now, it'll be your leopard geckos then. I think this is just the evolution of how we as reptile keepers and exotic keepers in general need to coexist with public as the public gets more and more eyes on what's really going on. And that goes to say with what we've been talking about in the past, the bad characters. It just takes one person. But at the end of the day, I do think some of these larger species will evidently be out of the private keeper's hands. And whether that's fortunate or unfortunate, depending on what perspective you have, I don't think the hobby's going anywhere, but I think certain sectors of the hobby will slowly be phased out over time. Whether they're already being, I know a ton of Tegu guys that have gotten out of the business since the big Florida ban.
Yeah. We did it to ourselves, though, man. Like, people did it to themselves, not caring for things right. To an extent, I believe there's a lot of propaganda against those species, but a lot of the times it's from people being irresponsible, unfortunately.
Oh, what are they saying? There's like 15,000 retics out there or something, and they can't seem to catch one?
What? Oh, the Burmese pythons in the glades.
Is it the berms? There was one specific
Yeah.
species.
See, that's a whole nother thing that we can get into. That's for a different episode.
That's gonna be part two.
That's my favorite
That's
topic.
a 3-hour conversation, bro.
Yeah, like we can get into that. I can give you genetic information. I can give you statistics. I can give you what you want to refute what these people are saying, essentially. But it's another episode.
Got it. Well, if we don't have anything to add, if you guys want to take some questions from chat, and then we might head out. Almost 3 hours. I'm surprised, man. Old Reliable. I thought this thing was going to blow up. It does keep saying there's an encoding overload and consider turning down video settings. But if it lasts 3 hours, it can last 20 more minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Will starts spitting the facts about FWC, that's when he doesn't freeze. His Wi-Fi raised him.
They don't want to see me down there, man. They don't want to see me down there. When I fucking get down there, dude, they're gonna have hell on their hands within a couple months. Trust me. Trust me.
Do it then.
All right, guys. If you guys got any questions you guys want to ask any of the panelists, or just a general question, put them down in chat, and then we'll answer them, and then start heading on out of here.
Bro, chat's been funny as hell. I'm not gonna lie. Chat's been funny as hell.
Man, my chat's fucking funny. There's so many times where like I legitimately crack up because some of the shit they say is so out of pocket.
I say most people have just been concerned about whether Brad's been standing up or.
And I haven't been watching the chat, so that was a surprise.
That's why, because they're like, there's no way he's been standing for 2 hours.
Fuck no, man. I'm too old for that. Broken too many bones in my day.
Instead, Dakota, let it Toge bite your tip.
Dude, Herptown, Mythos Geckos. There's a few others. Like because I do this once a week on Friday. Every time they're gonna say something that just makes me fucking laugh.
What would the number be for you to do that?
Yeah, the number of the super chat.
The tip?
The tip, bro.
I mean, I'm not cut, so I got some extra protection there.
Come on, bro.
Shout out to my European brothers. We did not conform to American standards. I'm gonna be real with you guys. The number probably wouldn't be that high. I mean, if I could, I'd probably do it for a couple grand so I can get like this Anole collection and these Anole projects really going. I'd let it bite the tip because I've been bitten by tokays a bunch now. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's gonna fucking suck, but if I can get a whole Anole project going from it, I'd do it.
I do it for 400.
Bro,
400. Homie's like, yo, good steak dinner, and I'll do it.
Fuck that, dude. I feel like the dick is so sensitive, dude. Like, it could probably take a piece of it off, dude.
See, I got the hood, so.
What are you made of? Are you made of flannel or something? Jesus Christ! What do you mean it take a bit off?
I don't want to hear it from you.
Bro, how small is it? You think it's just gonna be able to chomp?
I don't want to hear it from you, bro. No nuts, no opinion.
Will, I was DMing you. Wait, Herptown. Hold on. You was DMing me? Wait. Hold on. Let me
scroll up. There's a bunch of good ones. All right, we'll start scrolling up.
Bro,
this is where the stream just falls apart. It's less professional because it's like the after show. Bro, I don't know. There's a lot of chat. If you have a good question, put it down right here.
Yeah,
it would just circumcise Dakota, no prob.
Jungle Junction. Okay.
Oh, with the blue box turtle. Okay, yeah, I remember. Yeah. Yep.
I can't see any questions.
Yeah,
so
I
have
can't
a
see any
question
questions.
for Will number 2.
I still don't know
why
what that
y'all
means.
going in on him so much? They're trying to go in on Alex, bro.
Yeah, I saw that. That's why I started laughing at one point.
32.
Oh, I thought it was because Will left and came back.
No, Alex was getting roasted.
Yeah, bro, bunch of fucking losers. Oh, that.
Essentially, he's head as Will from Timu.
Of course, Riddler laughs at that one. There's some racist undertones there.
There's
You
some
think-
racist
No,
undertones.
your words, my friend. Your words, not mine. All right.
Wills have the same. No, I usually am wearing a black tank though. I'm wearing this little cutoff. I usually am wearing a black tank, so I should have. I was going to wear it. I was going to wear a black tank, but I thought they would get, oh, you fucking slut! Why are you wearing a tank top? You fucking whore! So I didn't wear one. You know.
Well, to be fair, there was calls for you to take your shirt off at one point, so there is that.
No, I'm not gonna do it.
Bill would have done it.
Well, boys, I think that's gonna wrap it up for today. I don't think we got. I don't have any more questions. I feel like the questions that I do have, we should just save and do like a part 2 later on.
We need a part 2. We
Because
need a
I
part 2.
already got 3 questions that I could load up, but we're already 3 hours in.
Yeah, I've got to go to bed.
And I think it's like 5 a.m. for Riddler.
3 a.m. Yeah, it's 3 a.m.
All right. Well, I guess the last thing I want to do is let your guys shout out your socials and everything. We'll kick it off with Brad and then go down the line.
Yeah, sure. So Brad's Bioactive Builds on YouTube, same with Instagram. And then I also have, I'll plug this as well. I do have a 501c3 foundation that helps people in early recovery that suffer from alcoholism and drug addiction. It's called the 516 Light Foundation. You can find us on Facebook or 516lightfoundation.org. Every penny that comes in goes right back to the people. I don't take a salary, and we pay for people's sober living. We also do public speaking and stuff like that. But I just like to give that a shout out because there's a lot of people out there dying from this shit, addiction. So feel free to check that out as well.
Yeah, I forgot about this. Me and Brad have actually talked before the whole group chat thing because he wanted to reach out. This is back when I was really, I think my lights are about to get shut off. There was one specific winter where like things were really tight. He was like, "Oh, I'd like to offer you." I think it was like up to $500 to help out. I forgot about it, so I didn't take it. But just the thought itself was super kind and super nice. It's crazy how much me and Brad are alike with our past and everything. I always thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Doing recovery check-ins. You know, I think you had a video out there where you were going through a little bit of life situations and just being somebody in recovery. I know what that's like and want to be able to help out.
It's rough. It's crazy. It's crazy how many people that are under recovery go to like reptiles because I do think of it as like a second addiction. I couldn't think of my life like without reptiles, right? Yeah. All right, sorry. I wanted to shout that out. Brad's an amazing guy. It's just slow. I like how you have that dimming. Is that supposed to emulate the like evening to?
Yeah, so it's before like Lumnice came out, so I tried to create it on my own. And usually they're all in sync, but for some reason daylight savings throws it off. So once it hits again, they'll all be working together. Jupiter's and my blue tree, but yeah, just to kind of have the low light come in, and it starts in the morning like that and ends at night like that too.
Awesome. All right, Will, what do you got for us?
Just Will Exotic on all platforms. Y'all can just type in Will Exotic, man. You'll find. Did it freeze again?
No, you good.
You're good.
Yeah, just.
Are you serious? There's no way. There's no way.
Till the very end, bro. Till the very end.
Bro said,
Shout out Gary for the live stream, bro.
Yeah, big shout out to Gary. He's the one that brought this all together. He made a group chat specifically for all of us to get it going.
Gary's the real one, bro.
Gary made this into a reality.
Yeah, he did.
He said, Dakota, stand up.
Yeah, they think you're in just boxers, by the way.
No, bro, it's gym shorts, all right? I got fat, and I can't wear my pants, so I just wear gym shorts. Is that what you want to hear?
I respect it.
I'm no longer the Greek god that I am. Why do you think the beard is like... Actually, I just kind of trimmed it, so that's a lie. All right, Riddler, let's shout out the socials.
Appreciate you.
Bro, not the fucking vape pen, bro. The vape necklace.
Vape necklace, bro. No, you gotta
stop.
You gotta stop, dude.
Here's the thing. I try in my videos. I've grown so accustomed to it. It's like a fucking like the binky, where like if it's off, I'm constantly like, oh fuck, now I gotta go in my pocket. It's bad.
Man, every time I see that shit,
bro, at least take it off with the thumbnails, bro. Take it off on the thumbnails, please.
I've been trying. In my newer stuff, I stop and I kind of take it off. Actually, what I do is I do this. Problem solved.
Go ahead, Riddler. Shout out your shitty shit socials.
It's so annoying. Just because you jumped on a hype and decided to bash someone, now you're ahead of me on YouTube. Anyway, so yeah.
That's what I'm, bro. Dead ass.
Appreciate you, Gary, for setting this up. Dakota, thank you for having us on. I appreciate you. Thank you. Riddler Reptiles across all social media platforms. I'm most active on Instagram and YouTube. I do have TikTok, but I don't use it very much. Facebook. But yeah, just Riddler Reptiles across all of those. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Was it you, Riddler? I want to make this a point. Riddler was not following me on Instagram before we made this. He messaged like, "Sorry, bro, I didn't realize I wasn't following you." I was like, "I don't give a shit."
Yeah, because you tagged me. Obviously, you put the story up.
Oh,
the
yeah.
live stream, and I saw, and it said message request. I was like, and I saw it was you. I was like, "Oh shit, that's embarrassing." I was like, "Bro, I'm sorry."
I can't believe you're guys.
But yeah, I'm following and I'm subscribed, so don't worry, we're good. We're good.
That's where it matters. I really don't care about any other platform but the YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, man, all the way.
Yeah.
So Ravishing Reptiles on YouTube, ravishingreptiles.yt. On Instagram, I post on IG, not as often as I should, but I am active on there every day. But yeah, check out the YouTube channel, man. Don't fucking lift your eyebrows. Active as in I opened the app, bro. Not posting things.
Look.
Shit, man. Hey, no,
trying to get him to be
thanks
more
for having
active.
us on, Dakota.
Yeah, man. Thank you, bro. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Despite the troubles.
No, this is fun. We'll definitely do it again. I have a couple of.
For sure.
I think we're definitely gonna do a little bit different with the live stream since I'm pretty consistent with it now. And some of this like roundtable talk. I want to get back to have some like I used to do Tokay talk with genetics, so we'll be bringing guests on a little bit more frequently than just doing the solo stuff. But we'll definitely do this again. Like I said, I already have new questions thought up, so I think it'll be fun. I think we'll have a GoFundMe before to upgrade Will's Wi-Fi, but after that, I think we should be good.
Dude, dead ass. I really don't know what's going on with it. It's usually like I've never had problems here while living here. Never, dude. I don't know. I don't know if it's the fact there's so many people or what. I don't know.
Also, just a quick one. If I cut out, my phone is about to die battery-wise, so I'm just letting you know I'm not just going to rudely disappear, but it might die.
It's okay. To be fair, I think Brad on stream, Brad's video was streaming at like 144p. He was basically just a bunch of pixels except for like 3 instances. We could hear him perfect, but it was just a bunch of squares. But all right, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Right. Check these guys out on the YouTube. We'll be back at another point in time to do a part 2 of this. Thank you guys so much for catching on. I think this was our biggest live. I think we had like almost 50 or 60 people. So I think, was it Alex or Will? One of you guys said we were going to have like 50 or 60. I think we hit that.
We went over 50.
I saw it have like 48, 49 at one point. Maybe it hit 50.
I saw over 50. Yeah, I saw over 50 for sure. But it was glitching.
Nice, dude.
We'll see as soon as I press the stop stream.